All right, guys, welcome to week 9 of the head coach episode for Free Tendies. I'm here with Yanni. What's up, dude?
What's up, buddy? How's your week going?
It's going good. Sniped a couple Pokemon restocks for sure. 10 Prismatic Evolution surprise boxes in the boat. Shout out Walmart. Also a big week on the fantasy front. We have our second matchup. And it's actually for my team, I feel like it's must win. I don't. You might still make it even if you don't win. But I fab dumped on Kareem Hunt, so that's where that roster's at. Not feeling great going into this one.
Our second match. Did we play in League Seven already?
You beat me by 5. It was the week
What?
where
Oh,
Jamar
when I
Chase.
played, I played Scataboo against you, and I remember that because you had Tracy and I had Scataboo, and we were trash talking about that. I do recall that. That was early in the year, though. But yeah,
Yeah, the 5 pointer from Jamar Chase against the
yeah,
Broncos, and you won by 5. But
I got super lucky in that one. Yeah,
yeah, well, I think those two teams will meet again. They're
yeah,
both looking to be in pretty good position in that league. But anyways, on to the show. Buys this week. There's actually not as many as I thought. I think that I just have a disproportionate amount of fantasy bags on these teams. I have one roster with 6 guys on buy this week, and it is
hmm
the Cleveland Browns, the New York Jets, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Philadelphia Eagles. So let's get into the game breakdowns. I'm giving Yanni this one because I have no fantasy players in this game at all.
yeah. So I have. I mentioned it the other day. I mean, I quite literally have thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of winnings that is going to be determined by how the Ravens do rest of season. It just is what it is. And actually, I mean, one team has Lamar, Flowers, and Achan. Another league has Derrick Henry and Achan. Like these two teams will determine my playoff destiny this year in fantasy. And I wouldn't say I feel amazing about that right now, but we'll see. Ravens going into Miami with an implied team total at 29. Dolphins with an implied team total at 21.5 at home. We'll just get the Dolphins out of the way real quick because there's far less to say. Devon Achan, I think, is the running back 3 in full PPR, running back 4 and 5 and half PPR. If Mike McDaniels leaves, if Tua gets benched, we'll revisit the situation. But for now, he is a high end RB1. I think there's a pretty clear tier break. Like I don't think anyone would say he's in the category of like the big running backs, the Christian McCaffrey, the Bijan, the even I would put Cook up there probably. I would have above HN. I would have Derrick Henry, I think, is live to outperform the rest of the year. Obviously, you have Jonathan Taylor, McCaffrey. But he's like been right there, sub in that area. He's actually been performing similarly to Gibbs. So look, I don't know what the future holds, but for now you do have a mid-range RB1 that you're starting every week. And this has been a good matchup most of the year. The Ravens actually got healthier. So I do think it's like going to be interesting what way the Dolphins offense goes here. I think they may have some trouble operating, but between Waddle and Achan, that offense is so concentrated and the game script should be so pass heavy. I think they're both live here to have really good games. And then our sort of tricky decision is going to be Tua, just because it's going to be a very pass happy game script. And the Dolphins defense hasn't been what it was. Tua tends to perform much better at home. I actually think he's live to throw a few touchdowns here. But I don't know if I would like to start him. To me, this is more like if you are really in like if you have Joe Flacco, who may or may not go. I've actually seen Joe Flacco has been started in most of the leagues I've been in since he's been the Bengal starter. And then also Jackson Dart looks like he might be ruled out at the last minute this week. It sounds like he's going to be a game time decision. Like if you have something like that, I think you're totally fine to stream Tua, but I wouldn't go out of my way to do it. So he's a sort of tricky decision. For the Ravens, we're going to sit Likely and Bateman. Likely actually ran a similar number of routes to Andrews last week. Maybe that becomes an interesting conversation going forward. If you're a tight end needy roster, I would in fact be stashing Likely, but I would not start him this week. I wouldn't start Bateman this week, and then Hopkins is that's a round 18 that's a round 18 underdog play. You should not be rostering Bateman in anything less than like a 16 team league. And then your starts. Obviously, Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, Derrick Henry, and Mark Andrews. The most controversial one there is going to be Mark Andrews. Look, he had a tight end one overall finish with Lamar Jackson this year. We haven't really seen him since with Lamar. I still believe that Mark Andrews is ultimately Lamar's guy. There have not been trade rumors, even though he's been rumored throughout the year to be traded. If you've noticed on Twitter today, was like banging for different trade rumors, different guys that are suspect. Juwan Jennings deleted his Instagram. We haven't really seen or heard any of that with Mark Andrews. closed. I tend to think that if they think they're making a real run this year, they're just going to keep Andrews and Likely, and I actually think you can totally stream him this week. Zay Flowers is, to me, I'm actually wondering, is Zay Flowers going to sneakily try to push into the fringe wide receiver one conversation rest of season? He is third or fourth in the NFL in target share. He's getting absolutely elite usage. It's just been usage that came from Snoop Huntley and Cooper Rush. I absolutely love the him and Lamar stack going forward. I think Zay Flowers is close to a must-start player for me rest of season, certainly in a matchup like this. Derrick Henry's live to go for 200 yards here with the way the Miami rush defense has looked. But yeah, we'll see. They said Lamar's totally healthy, totally back. I'm not sure. He took the longer end of what a hamstring injury would be. So I'm going to take them at their word for that. And they're only 2 games back from the Steelers. Like I expect the Ravens to really get going here and to make up for lost time. They do have the highest projected point total of the week, so that's what Vegas thinks too. To me, the only real question here is, can Tua and the Dolphins keep it competitive enough to force them to keep passing, or do we get like a 36-point game from Derrick Henry, which I think is totally live?
Yeah, so obviously we can't play it because it's a Thursday game, but I would be hammering the Ravens here. I know that
Yeah.
early leads on Chad and Simon's show, so that's a square pick, but I feel like the Ravens really start rolling here. There's still problems with the defense, right? They are still banged up. They're still missing Kyle Van Noy and Monabuke, I believe that's how you
Mhm.
say his name, on the D line. So that is an issue, right? But they held DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai to like 4 yards a carry last week. I think having Roquan back there really helped them. Nate Wiggins flashed on the interception of
Yep.
Caleb. So there's pieces to like about this Ravens defense, and I feel like the Dolphins got bailed out last week by like a terrible Bijan performance. So I feel like it's going to be a Ravens smash here. I'm going up against you starting Lamar. I'm not stoked about that tomorrow. I'd be stoked though if I were you. I think this thing's,
Yeah.
especially with the way the AFC North is now, right? The Ravens are
Yeah.
2 games back, and I'd expect. I think they probably take the division from the Steelers now, if I'm being honest. But
So I want your read on this. I have been rolling lately with the double ups. I have hit like 3 or 4 double up, just $5 double ups on the game. I just like feeling something while the game's going. And so I'm going to captain Zay Flowers here, which means I get the 1.5 points for Zay because he was the cheapest one out of all the big fantasy assets going. And then I'm going to put Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry in there. And I'm going to put 2 randoms. When you do that like that, you basically have to put 2 nobodies in the bottom of the roster, but you only need to be in the top 50% of scoring. So it's worth it to me because I think there's a chance that the Dolphins get blown out here. So I want the Ravens, right? Would you rather roll with Devon Achan or Jalen Waddle if I'm going to throw one Dolphin in there as a stick? Which would be your one Dolphin?
are you just like asking me a question to make me say I prefer Achan in any given situation?
So if you look right there, right, like I can throw Achan in with my little expensive. I can switch out Achan or Waddle because I'm just wondering, who do you like better in this one, because I think the Ravens run D has been bad all year, but they seemed better last week. But to me, I just feel like Achan's more ways to score. He's been higher scoring this year.
I
Um,
think Achan is more reliable. I
okay,
think that Tua is live to just poop his pants in any given
okay,
situation, right? Like I think we're one bad Tua performance away from him getting just yanked entirely. It wouldn't shock me if this was the week. I know.
okay,
So the reason the gambling guys are liking the Dolphins side here is because they're at home, right? So
yeah,
there are positive trends with the Dolphins offense and Tua being competent at least at home, right? Because you're not dealing with the weird bad cold weather. So that would be an argument for Waddle, but I feel like Achan he gets enough of that scam work, right, where he's gonna just be fine until
all right.
something changes. All right, next one. We got the reeling Atlanta Falcons going to New England to play the Patriots. The Falcons have an implied team total of 20 points here, and the Patriots have an implied team total of 25 and a half. For the Falcons, this is pretty chalk, I'd say. We're starting Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts. Then we're going to sit the rest. We're not bothering with the other options there. Then for the Patriots, our only start for you is Drake May. And then everyone else on the team is really a tricky decision to us. The running backs, Stephon Diggs, Kayshon Boutte, and Hunter Henry. And let's start with the Patriots first. I feel like it's a more interesting conversation. Drake May at this point is a no-brainer. He's played so well. I think that out of like fantasy quarterbacks, right? You have the big guys like Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar, then probably put Jalen Hurts in there for the rushing upside. And I feel like Drake May is like in that next tier of guys. Like he's been playing so well that I feel like he's matchup proof at this point. So no brainer there. The tricky decisions are like where the real conversation happens, right? So for the running backs, Ramondre was not practicing this week, or he didn't practice today on Wednesday. So we record this on Wednesdays, right? So right now it's looking like he might actually not play in this game, which in theory would open it up for Trevion Henderson, right? Which is what we're all Trevion Henderson bag owners are like hoping for. But now the rumors circulating around that the Patriots, if they're going to trade for someone at the deadline, they're looking at running back. There was a report out there that they inquired about Chuba Hubbard from the Panthers. So I feel like I wouldn't love either of them, right? Like Ramondre, I'm not really interested in this one. Like in theory, if Ramondre was out and it was only Henderson, like you'd think that'd be good. But I feel like the Variable might do something weird with that, like call up a practice squad guy and give him entirely too much work, or I just don't trust Henderson to ever get a lion's share of the work at this point. So tricky decisions. I lean Hendo a little bit. Maybe it's a good spot. I actually just traded out of my only share of Trevion Henderson. It was like a multiplayer deal to get Kittle on my super roster, which is great. But yeah, tricky decision for both of them. For Diggs and Booty, to me, like it's going to be one of these two guys that pops up usually. It's just really hard with this Patriots passing attack to figure out who's going to be the guy on a weekly basis because it mixes around so much, right? Diggs kind of works in like the intermediate short area of the field out of the slot. Booty's more of like a big play guy. Pop Douglas is also a relevant option in the Patriots passing game. We didn't put him here though because I feel like he's not fantasy relevant and it's way too spotty to even make the slides yet, but it's really just take your pick on this one. Who do you prefer? I wouldn't feel rock solid with either of them in the lineup. I maybe prefer Diggs a little more. He got in the end zone last week against the Browns, but I'd still say they're like on the flex radar, not like in the top 24 or anything like that. And Hunter Henry is the last one. He was the tight end one for a certain stretch of the season, but over the past month, he has had no more than 5 targets in a game, no more than 50 yards, and he had last week one grab for 7 yards and a touchdown. This is kind of what we told you about the player, right? He's a very like high variance guy. Some weeks he'll be great, and other weeks he's going to get you like 3 points in your lineup and just completely dud. I feel like Diggs coming back phased him out of the offense almost, right? Like the Patriots are just prone to spreading the ball around, and when they have like Diggs and Booty and Pop Douglas in there, it's just like I don't know. I don't think he's reliable to start at this point. Even Austin Hooper, former De La Salle grad, shout out, but he's been scoring touchdowns too and getting used as another tight end. So for me, Henry's like a tight end too. I'd still leave him rostered if you prefer to have two tight ends on your roster, but I lean sit here on him. Like I'd have to see something change to be more confident in that situation. For the Falcons, absolutely disgusting performance last week, but Bijan is just too good. He's too good to sit. The Patriots have a good rush defense. I believe they're like top 10 in yards allowed against the running back. So, in theory, it's a difficult matchup. And Bijan just went for 4 points against the like Miami Dolphins, which are notoriously like the easiest matchup. But don't get cute with this. I have to think that the Falcons put up a better performance this week. Like the what 30-point blowout to the Dolphins, that's like an aberration. I don't really know what to make of that. I'm willing to just wipe it off. Bijan's a great player. He gets the receiving work too, so even if it's not traditionally in between the tackles running, I think he's still going to get anywhere in the neighborhood of like 18 to 20 points this week. Rock solid RB1. Drake London, he should be coming back from injury this week. He's been a high variance player like pretty much all year. He should be getting the Christian Gonzalez matchup, which is tough, but I don't know, man. To me, he's more of like a wide receiver too this week, but he's still a start, right? You're not sitting Drake London unless you have like some extraordinary circumstance, and I doubt you do with the relevant players on bye this week. So still a start for us. I prefer him a little bit less, but it's fine. Then Kyle Pitts. I I guess this is controversial. I think this is more about the position of tight end, though. He's gotten steady work. Like, oh, this year, like I looked at Kyle Pitts' box score and I was like, oh, that's nice. Like he didn't kill you any weeks. He didn't goose egg. Like he's had a higher floor than Hunter Henry. Like just in the same game, right? He hasn't done anything spectacular. He's still underwhelming, but you could throw him out there this week. I think the Falcons are probably get down in this game, have to throw, and either Drake, not Drake May, either Michael Penix or Kirk Cousins have been willing to throw in the ball. I think he's fine here. When we say the rest, Darnell Mooney is included in that until the passing offense and the team looks better in Atlanta. I'm not interested in rolling out those like other options, right? Like for now, we'll just keep it consolidated and kind of wait for more information on them. What do you think, man?
Not a whole lot to add. I would definitely say probably another down week from London here, unfortunately. Just the nature of going against Christian Gonzalez. He is a little bit banged up. He's been day to day to this point this week. I don't know if I'm expecting the biggest game out of him.
Is Drake London a sell high for you? Are you still as aggressively in as you were preseason?
No, he's closer to a buy for me than a sell. You know how I am with that dude. I don't give up on guys that easily. I've been buying on Nico Collins this week. I've been sending offers on Drake London. It's just my thing. But I think that trend line about him not getting a full target share with Mooney out there is legitimate. And if that doesn't shift, then yes, I will be concerned going forward. We'll see.
It's so crazy that the underwhelming force that is Darnell Mooney somehow
Yeah.
is like standing in the way of the Drake London season we all want for some reason. I don't even know if it's legitimate. Like it could just be a weird happenstance, but
Dude, the 2 weeks, so the 3 weeks where we didn't have Mooney last year, Drake London was the wide receiver one by a huge margin. This year, he was the wide receiver one over the 2 week stretch without Mooney. It's so bizarre to me when you have someone who could produce on a Justin Jefferson level or like a Puka Nakua level to be like, no, 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 no. We need to split these touches up with Darnell Mooney and Drake London so neither of them produce at a crazy high level. I don't understand it, but clearly there's something structural about their offense that like Penix can't work the ball downfield, probably the O line, right? But yeah, so
full disclosure, we were Darnell Mooney fans when he was in Chicago. I thought the kid
yes,
looked good back then. Like there
yeah,
was once upon a
yeah,
time we liked Darnell Mooney, and now it's like, hey,
yeah.
if you could
Me,
just
me,
like stay on the IR for the next 8 weeks, that'd be great for all the Drake
yeah.
London managers out there.
Me and Ted were going in on round 15 Mooney when he was with Fields his last year in Chicago. That is a channel niche. Okay. Panthers at the Packers. Panthers with an implied team total of 15.5. Just fucking dismal. It looks like they had one lineman who blew his Achilles, who was one of the best guards in the NFL. He was actually looking at getting a contract extension. So their best remaining lineman is now on IR, along with two other starters they came into the season with. This thing could get ugly against the Packers defensive line at home in Lambeau. It is just a tall order, and that's why the Packers are favored, and that's why the Packers are projected for 29 points here. But for the Panthers, I do still think Tet is a start, but he's like a start now. People have been kind of gushing over him all summer, all season to this point, and I've seen actually a lot of it this week because he sort of had like a mini breakout last week. He's got this like special whip route he does that's really cool that keeps generating first downs. He's one of the leaders in the NFL in first downs per route run, and first down share on his team. I think he's at like think like 30 to 37% of his plays go for a first down. The next closest on his team is 8%. So, he's like driving that offense. The issue is he's driving an offense that's anemic and that's impotent. And 60% of the O line is on the IR for the season. Two other ones are injured. I just don't like I'm starting him as an upside flex. Like if he catches a touchdown, you may get a low end wide receiver 1 week out of him, which is cool. If he goes, gets 10 targets like he's gotten a few times this year, you're gonna get like 12 to 13 half PPR, which is totally functional. But like that ceiling that I think a lot of the fantasy community, myself included, were really fantasizing about, it's really hard to reach when the best thing that the Panthers offense had going for it coming into the year was that the pass blocking on their O line was really, really good. They were like ninth in pass block win rate and pass blocking efficiency the first 2 weeks, and then it's just been downhill since. I don't trust Bryce Young or Andy Dalton to operate behind this thing. So you just have to factor that in with Tetaroa moving forward. It's a bummer. I have the heaviest bags on any fantasy player I've ever had in my fantasy career. Were Tetaroa and McMillan this year, and actually Rashi Rice this year. Both of them are rostered in 75% of my leagues. Okay, Your sits. I don't want to start either running back right now. Shit is fucking weird with what Dave Canales is saying about this team. I couldn't tell, depending on how you interpret his press conference, to me it sounded like he was saying we're rolling Dowdle out as the starter. It's like the way that he sort of said, like, you have to respect players that have been here and have been and doing things and building our culture, but you also at some point have to put your best players on the field. To me, that pretty clearly sounded like he has a dichotomy going between Chuba Hubbard, the veteran who's been there and put his time in, and Rico Dowdle. Rico Dowdle has almost doubled his yards per carry in the last 2 weeks, but they've been splitting 50-50. I don't really know. I really don't know. To me, my interpretation was it goes no less than 50-50. They broke off Chuba. He's a team captain. He's been a pretty good player for 2 years. He was a back end or like a mid-range running back one for most of the end of last year, like the last third of the season. I did not see a scenario, and I still don't, where they just give Dowdle 65% of the work. To me, it's like if they really lean Dowdle, it's 55%. I would be shocked if it got up to 60%. The issue is, I would imagine Chuba gets more of the passing work, Dowdle gets more of the goal line work. To me, it renders them both as like emergency flex plays. I don't really want to start either of these guys. If you're on a zero or a hero RB team and you need to plug Dowdle in because you got him off the waiver, that's totally fine. But like if you have other options on your team, I would be going with those. Ted will talk about when we get to the Chiefs slide a decision he made between Chuba Hubbard and Kareem Hunt, and like I agree with it. I would be making that decision. That's crazy for a guy that you drafted at the 3-4 turn this year. For a guy who was a mid-range RB1 at the end of last season, I would really, obviously for fantasy, right? We just wish they would give it to one guy. That's not, football coaches aren't fantasy. They don't care. And I think in terms of yards per carry, they may end up leaning into the efficiency of Dowdle here over the veteran leadership and sort of the grinder attitude that Chuba brings to a game. But we'll see. For now, I'm sitting both of them. Jalen Coker last week saw 5 targets. This is a bad secondary. This is more of a sort of tricky decision strictly in a DFS sense. I think for DFS rosters, if you want a $3,000 to $4,000 dart throw wide receiver, you could do a lot worse than Jalen Coker this week, especially if the O-line gets really bad and they need to start getting hot routes out. Jalen Coker is very often going to be in the slot and going to be getting hot routes. You got full PPR in DraftKings. I think he's live to see 6 to 8 targets here if things really start going south. They're trailing. They need to get the ball out. But again, more of a DFS thing. I would not be playing him in redraft. For the Packers, this one's very straightforward. Love is playing really good football right now, really efficient football, still with his Love goofiness. That doesn't go away. That's part of him, and that's I actually kind of love him for that. Like he's kind of like a human, like a golden retriever at quarterback is sort of how I think of Jordan Love. And yeah, but golden retrievers are great. They're good family dogs, and that's kind of what Jordan Love is. Like I sit down, I watch the game, and I get like I feel like I get a good 3 hours when Jordan Love plays for the good and the bad. He's gonna do dopey stuff, but I think like with his schedule rest of season, I saw him dropped in a few leagues. He needs to be rostered, and with his schedule rest of season, I think he's live to be like the QB7 or 8, QB9, like around that range of the mid-range back end QB1s. I would certainly start him this week. Jacobs, you're never sitting. Tucker Kraft, tight end 1 in points per game and overall points. Does that hold up? I think it's fair to say that he's gotten pretty lucky with the touchdown luck and the run after the catch stuff. But to me, he's a top 3 tight end if he's not tight end 1. Does Brock Bowers come back to take his crown this week? We'll see, but you're still starting him. And then here's how we're going to handle the Packers receivers. Golden has totally dropped off with his route participation, with his target share. It has been pointed out now by multiple fantasy content creators. Never since leaving high school has he commanded an over 20% target share. He's failed to do so yet again. And this time he had like 4 to 6 weeks of runway before Watson came back with Reed out. To me, he's almost droppable. I'm not a big fan of dropping first round wide receivers in efficient offenses with a quarterback that's playing well, but like I would prefer to roster Dobbs or Watson at this point, right? So I'm pretty pessimistic about his outlook. And then Dobbs and Watson, I would prefer to start Dobbs over Watson just because of the great work Dobbs has put into this point this year. I think they're both fine emergency flexes if you need it. Watson immediately came in, got like 5 targets, nothing earth shattering, but I think him and Love have a clear and consistent chemistry that showed right away, even when he should hypothetically be slowed down during an injury ramp up. To me, like Christian Watson is kind of a must add on waivers. And so I added him in a bunch of places. I'm not starting him. Maybe I ended up getting too excited about one of my guys. He's been one of my guys since he came out of the draft. I don't know. But I don't feel great. The one that we really want to flag here is like, I don't think Golden is going to be startable. And when Jaden Reed gets back, I think it's going to be a mess. The only thing I'm certain of is they want to use Watson as their X receiver, so that's the guy that is my favorite. And that Dobbs seems to have a really specific red zone chemistry with Jordan Love. So that's how I would approach their wide receivers. I think it's going to get pretty freaking messy there pretty quickly, especially once Reed is back.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment that the Packers wide receiver room is just kind of gross to deal with, right? Somehow the Green Bay Packers, by selecting Matthew Golden in the first round, got yet another wide receiver too on their
Yep.
team for some reason. So it feels like Dobbs by far always runs the most routes and is like the most consistent. Like I think if Golden got Dobbs's work, he'd be better at it than
Oh yeah.
Dobbs is, but it's just not what they're doing there. And yeah, Christian Watson coming off an injury ran like 35 routes. Like it's definitely something. I wonder if it continues. To me, this game feels like the Packers are just going to be like super run heavy, right? It just feels like that's what the Grant game script is going to be. The Panthers just allowed like over 200 yards to James Cook. So I would imagine it's a low volume Jordan Love game. There's one team that I have like multiple start sit decisions involving the Green Bay Packers. It's a Dak Prescott and Jordan Love roster, and I am rolling Dak this week. Like I
Yeah.
started Jordan Love last week. I'm rolling Dak this week. I feel like it's on the
Yep.
board. Love gets 15, 16 points. Excuse me. Then the other, for somehow on that roster, I ended up with both Tucker Kraft and Tyler Warren, and I've had that decision every week. That For that decision, I am going Tyler Warren this week, just because I feel like this may be a Josh Jacobs and Emmanuel Wilson type of game. We didn't put Emmanuel Wilson on there. We think that it's just more circumstantial what his usage has been, but it wouldn't shock me to see Emmanuel Wilson get like 10 to 12 like carries as well.
Who
Then
are
for the
you flexing?
Panthers, what was
Who
that?
are you who are you flexing in that league?
It's a double flex league, and I am flexing Tet and DeAndre Swift.
Oh God, that's such a good roster. Because I was gonna say I would almost rather flex Craft if you can, but mm,
It's an interesting league. It is no half PPR, no PPR. You get a point per first down. So,
oh, then Tedero is probably doing pretty well. He catches
mhm.
a lot of first
Yeah,
downs.
yeah,
So
Ted's been like solid, right? And I
oh
have that same tight end room in another league that I drafted, and that is PPR. In that one, I start Kraft and Warren weekly. I'm
yeah.
like one of those like two tight end rosters
No, but you
somehow.
can't. You totally can't. Kraft essentially gets like the wide receiver one production from this offense. You know, like I totally would start him. That's why I was asking. Okay, good job drafting that you have that choice.
Then on the Panthers side, I'm open to the idea that maybe Dowdle gets more work than Chuba. I'm not taking what Dave Canales said super seriously though. And even like let's say Rico Dowdle gets the lion's share of the work in this game. I feel like it's pretty safe to say the Packers probably stuff him. I think if Dowdle has a great performance here, maybe it's a different conversation. But like even if Dowdle gets like 60% and the Panthers just do nothing in their running game, I'm not gonna come out next week and be like, "Yep, that's it. It's all Rico Dowdle now." Like I feel like you should be patient with this. You should be open to your opinion changing on it, right? That being said, though, I feel like the Dowdle guys have just been getting a little too excited, but proof
Hey
will be
man,
in the pudding.
I'm sending offers with Dowdle in them aggressively right now. I'm trying to offload my because I needed streamers that week. I was short a few times, so like I put in pretty hefty bids for him and streamed him for a while. I am certainly trying to offload those shares right now. So
Uh, I will say, under no circumstances am I starting Chuba Hubbard this week, though. Absolutely not.
no,
If
no,
I
no.
if I had Chuba Hubbard like as a desperation need in my roster, I might fab dump for someone like Kareem Hunt even. That might be how desperate I'd be. All right, next one. We got the Broncos going into Houston to play the Texans. The Broncos have an implied team total of 19 points here, and the Texans have an implied team total of 20 and a half points. I feel like this might be a surprising line. I'm not sure. But
I was
okay.
surprised. I was surprised to see that.
Okay, I guess we're calling the Texas favorites. For the Broncos, our only start for you is J.K. Dobbins. We're going to sit Bo Nix, Cortland Sutton, and R.J. Harvey. I feel like that's a pretty hot take, but we'll explain. And then we're going to tricky decision Troy Franklin here. Then for the Texans, we're going to start C.J. Stroud. We're going to start Nico Collins. We're going to sit Christian Kirk, Jaden Higgins, Dalton Schultz. And then we're going to tricky decision Jalen Noel,
Mhm.
Woody Marks, and Nick Chubb. It's a lot of Texans names that I feel like I didn't recognize. I think I did pretty good there, saying
Yeah,
everything.
killed
But
it.
let's go straight to the Broncos though. So listen, man, this Texans defense, like I know we say it repeatedly on the show, but they're playing at such a high level right now, man. That was a drubbing they just administered to the 49ers. They've been doing this all year though. And not only that, Bo Nix is like the number one quarterback in the league over the past 2 weeks, right? J.K. Dobbins got sniped by R.J. Harvey twice at the goal line. So I feel like this may be a hot-ish take, but Bo Nix has shown me, at least at points this season, that like I feel like there's regression that's happened with him. I feel like he's been playing shaky and kind of like just ran into a extremely movable force in the Dallas Cowboys, right? I don't think the defensive matchups could be more different here. For me, I'm giving Bo Nix a seat in this one. I think that you'd be lucky to get to 20 points. I think that 13, 14 is probably more likely here. If you're a two quarterback roster of Bo Nix, I would go get start your other guy, right? If you I don't know what quarterbacks might be on waivers, right? Like I wouldn't get
I would
too gross with it. Like I'm not starting Geno Smith over Bo Nix, but like what were you gonna say, Yanni?
I would start Trevor Lawrence at the Raiders over
Yep,
Bo Nix.
yep.
I would start CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud has had almost 30 rushing yards a game this whole season. Like I would start CJ Stroud over Bo Nix in a heartbeat.
Yeah. So
Um,
we just want to put it on the radar, because I feel like managers might be riding some Bo Nix high right now. Just be careful with that. Cortland Sutton, he's gotten really shut down the last 2 weeks. This sit is not at all us saying we don't like the player. He's not a good player. I think that going forward, he's absolutely going to be the guy to own in Denver. If you can do trades to get Cortland Sutton on your roster, I would do that. I feel like he's undervalued in the market, but he's getting the Derek Stingley Jr. matchup. And we
yep.
saw what Derek Stingley did to like like a bigger bodied veteran in Mike Evans earlier this year. It's a really difficult matchup for a wide receiver one. I would look elsewhere if you can. Dobbins and Harvey, like I don't know. Do you want to call what happened with RJ Harvey last week a breakout? I don't really. I think that Sean Payton has shown that he will get weird with his usage with the running backs. I understand J.K. Dobbins had a couple down weeks in a row here, but we're still going to operate under the assumption that he is the starter and like really the RB1 in Denver. It feels like if Bo Nix struggles, they're going to want to try and establish the ground game a little bit. I think they prefer to do that with Dobbins. Again, I am open to this changing, right? There's a reason RJ Harvey was going in like the fifth or sixth rounds of your fantasy drafts. He's a good player, and we saw some flashes last week. So it's possible, but I'm not gonna call it out here after like a 1 week sample size, right? I would still start Dobbins though. He's been good for you all year. For me, he's more of like a flex, but he's been a solid flex. Then Troy Franklin is the tricky decision. This connection with Bo Nix to me has looked like it's actually working over the past couple weeks. I'm encouraged by the usage. I think he hit like 19 fantasy points last week. Obviously, it's the Dallas Cowboys, so they make everyone look great. But I don't know. Like if we think Sutton gets like locked up by Stingley, I feel like it may be a big Troy Franklin week if there's any success in the air here. That's why we're gonna tricky decision him. That's more of like a I wouldn't be forcing him into your lineups, but I think he's a perfectly acceptable like replacement in your flex for like bye weeks or something like that. Like if you have like a Buka on bye, if you have Devontae
Yep.
Smith on bye, AJ Brown on bye, I think it's perfectly reasonable to go that way. For the Texans, the big news here is that Pat Surtain, I think he tore a pec or he has like a pec strain. I don't know exact. His pec is hurt, is what I know, and it sounds like he's going to miss anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. So you take out the reigning defensive player of the year from this Broncos defense, like they're still pretty good, but I feel like it's going to create a lot more opportunities for CJ and Nico Collins. Like I'll be transparent. If Sertan was playing in this game, I don't know if Collins is even a start for me this week. But without him
No,
in there, fire him up, fire him
no,
up. I think it'll be pretty good. Especially because he got the week break, right? Coming off concussion, that's not like he's not going to have an issue ramping up here. So I think they're good to go. We're just going to sit Christian Kirk, Jaden Higgins, and Dalton Schultz. It feels like they've popped up of their own accord on given weeks, but there's not that many points here, right? 20 and a half implied team total. So Vegas is saying 39 total points. I feel like this is a running game. I feel like this is a defensive game. Like you're really stretching it if you're trying to get these like outside options on the Houston Texans in your lineups. I would look elsewhere. Then for the tricky decisions, Jalen Knoll, he looked very good the past 2 weeks now. Like I don't know. He doesn't have a ton of juice, but he has juice, which is like what the Texans have needed, right? We've said this for a while. Like with Joe Mixon being out, the Texans are just looking for guys to step up to be like at least respectable options in their offense to kind of take the attention away from Nico if they can. Jalen Knoll, he looks like the second best wide receiver on the Texans at a bare minimum.
Mhm.
He's a lower end flex for me, but if you're desperate during your bye weeks or injuries, I think it's fine. Then Woody Marks and Nick Chubb as tricky decisions. I mean, they're already kind of splitting. There are some people that think that there's like a Woody Marks breakout that's happening, right? Ever since really Woody Marks got more involved in the offense and it became a two-man show versus a rotation, like managers have been waiting for Woody Marks. I just don't think it's there yet. I think that near the end of the season, we could potentially see more of that work taken away from Nick Chubb. But I think Chubb had like 14, 15 carries last week in a plus game script against the Niners. It feels like, they're perfectly willing to give Chubb like the
Yeah.
traditional running work. Marks mixes in there too, but he also gets in on passing downs. To me, I prefer Marks to Chubb. Like if you need a flex play because of the receiving upside that Woody Marks has, and he's just a more explosive player. I don't love either of them though this particular week, just because the Broncos are good. And full disclosure, I just Woody Marks is my most traded for player in fantasy this year. I've gotten 2 Woody Marks trades done. So I'm loaded up on Woody. I'm optimistic about him, but I think you could look elsewhere this week. But at least with buys, like you could do it. What do you think, Ben?
No, I mean, you know what a fan I was of Harvey, the college prospect, and his the problem with the breakout last week was it would be a breakout if his usage had fundamentally changed. His usage did not fundamentally change. He just broke off routes. I think he had 30% of the backfield, right?
Hmm.
And just Dobbins looks too good. They're not going to give it to Dobbins. But if that had happened, like if they went 55% for Harvey and then he got 3 touchdowns, then I would say we're in the midst of a breakout. To me, he's just a tantalizing upside handcuff. He's just one of those guys that like you can fantasize about what that backfield would be like if it were him and Bad Bidet, but it's just not. And then Noel has seen 13 targets coming out of their bye, 13 targets the last 2 weeks. Christian Kirk can't stay healthy. Higgins is more of the replacement X receiver for Collins. So I do actually think Noel needs to be rostered in leagues, and we need to be keeping an eye on what happens there, just because he's looked pretty good with the volume he's gotten, and he can totally coexist with Nico Collins out there on the field. And if he looks good, it makes way more sense for them to feature him than Christian Kirk, who's just sort of a veteran rental. So yeah, I'll be keeping an eye on that. But 13 targets coming out of the bye is pretty good. That's a pretty healthy workload. So. We'll see where it goes. Okay, God, this one's going to be boring and quick. Chargers at the Titans, 26-point implied team total for the Chargers, 17.5-point implied team total for the Titans. For the Titans, I have really no interest in starting anyone. Like all of these guys are way closer to sits for me. I don't want to roll Pollard out there this week. Io Manor is just not a consistent player. The tight ends like Helm is sort of a gunner. Helm is sort of interesting in like Dynasty or DFS, but like in redraft, absolutely not. Sit them all. And then Spears took over a lot more of the backfield work last week, had his first like low end RB1 or high end RB2 finish of the season, which was pretty good. He actually looks like he has juice. Like to me, that's who should be featured going forward. There's also rumors of Tony Pollard getting moved in the trade deadline early next week. They also held him out of practice today. So who knows? Tony Pollard did not practice today. If he does go though, I'm sitting him. I think Spears, like if you need a flex player, if you need an RB2, you have buys, you have injuries, like that's fine. I just wouldn't be excited about it, but I do think he's live to get 4 or 5 targets. He's live to fall in the end zone if they get in there. On one of the rare, they average a touchdown a game. So I live meaning if they get within touchdown range, there's a good chance it's him, but I don't know what the chances are they get in touchdown range. Very low to this point. And then Jamire DK.
Shamir, I was calling him Dyke. Maybe that's
No, it's
maybe I didn't
DK.
oh, okay. Accidental
DK. Yeah, accidental homophobic slur. All right, no, Jameer DK. So I had, I mentioned it last week. Like I had some rosters where I had to stream people and then lost multiple guys this week. So I mean, literally, when I was doing waivers, I had a few rosters with one guy on the bench. One. I was down 4, 5, 6 bodies, so I had to just go add waiver wire fodder. It's just been that kind of season, right? And so like, look, when he was around, no, I wouldn't grabbed him. I think that's fine. See where it goes. It seems like the Titans want to get their youth reps, which they should. It seems like Calvin Ridley's live to be traded, which he should be. So all of that to me spells sure. Well, hold on to him. He's looked pretty good. He's had two like high-end wide receiver two finishes the last 2 weeks. Seems like there's real chemistry there with Cam Ward. Does Cam Ward maybe have a better second half of the season than front half? Possible. I think he should be rostered. I don't think he should be started this week, but he's a sort of tricky decision. Like if you want to throw someone in there, I have a roster where I'm flexing Jalen Noel, so I get it. We're all hurting. For the Chargers, I'll let Ted weigh in with what he thinks because he has pretty heavy bags on this passing game. But here's how I interpret it: is one, Herbert to me has enough passing volume that he's a weekly start. I mean, if unless you have a really loaded roster, like I do have a roster where in Lamar Jackson's stead, I went and picked up Justin Herbert, who should have never been dropped, but he was. I spent like 30% of my fab on him. So I could stream him while Lamar Jackson was out, and he actually kept my team afloat. And like, something like that, sure, if you have Lamar Jackson, go ahead and start Lamar Jackson. But I doubt there are very many rosters where you could sit him this week. I know Ted in our home league has Caleb Williams. You still roster Caleb, right?
Yep.
Or did you drop him? Yeah, still roster Caleb. Caleb has the Cincinnati matchup this week, which is absolutely juicy. I just have a hard time putting Herbert on the bench for anything other than like one of the 5 or 6 best quarterbacks in fantasy. He's been that good this year. So Herbert, you're rolling him. Kamani Vidal, unless they trade for a running back or unless Omarion Hampton comes back, he's a must start. It's absolutely, for those of us last year that were slamming Kamani Vidal round 15, and you know who you were, believe me, I was there with you. I had like 30 or 40% Kamani Vidal coming out of the draft, and it has been vindicating to see that he is in fact a pretty good player. He's a good player in college at Troy. He's done really well with the workload. I think he's like at worst an RB2 moving forward until something changes. And certainly in this matchup to a team that hemorrhages fantasy points to running back. Like I think he's live to go 20 plus here in half PPR. Amari Gadsden, what is
Oronde Gadsden Jr.
Dude, I'm sorry.
His dad was a tight end for the Dolphins.
So do you know what's happening is I'm in the middle of like midterms right now, and I've actually stuffed so much information in my brain that like player names are getting pushed out. I can actually feel like where I'm losing space. It's like I cannot think about BF Skinner's theories of behaviorism at the same level as I can think of the Chargers' obscure 5th-round tight ends that are balling. It's one has to go. Unfortunately, I need to focus on BF Skinner's theory of behaviorism. So okay, but Gadsden. To me, here's my interpretation of it. In 3 wide receiver sets, Gadsden's been out there since his breakout for 95% of those reps. And Ladd has been out there for 94% of those reps. Whereas Allen and QJ have like alternated between 60, 70%, right? The way that I feel about it, Gadsden does a role that none of them do. He's the tight end. He has the most. If you were to ask me what pass catcher do I actually think will get the most consistent role, at least in terms of taking snaps and running routes every game, I actually think it's Gadsden. Because to me, it's like he's the one who's irreplaceable there, unless they're going to go with a no tight end set, which I don't think they really do. And then Ladd to me is the second one. I think Ladd is clearly their most talented receiver. He's had a resurgence. He's second in the NFL in targets right now over the last month. To me, those 2 guys are locked and loaded starters. The 2 that I'm going to put in and line up in matchups where I think they're going to have to drop back 35, 40 times a game are going to be Allen or QJ. I prefer Allen to QJ rest of the season, but they're going to be sits for us this week because I think they're going to beat the dog shit out of the Titans. I don't see them having to really drop back and air it out here. And if they're not going to do that, I don't really want to start Tertiary, and I don't even know what the I'm going to look up what the 4th iteration of their secondary, tertiary. I wonder what the 4th one is. Whatever. The 4th option on this passing offense, I'm not doing it. I'm just not interested in rolling out QJ or Allen this week. If you really need to, Allen's been so good this year. Like, I think that's fine. And QJ's always live to get a big touchdown. Like, it's not that I hate him. I would just really rather not have them in my lineup in a matchup like this that profiles for a game script like it does.
Yeah, my take on it is I think Vidal is the best start here out of the Chargers.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm I don't think it will be like this every week, right? But the Titans are missing Jeffrey Simmons in the middle, who's their absolute best player. They're also missing L'Jarius Sneed, their corner one. I think
Oh
he just went on
God.
IR. So like this Titans team, like we saw last week on that 80-yard Jonathan Taylor run, like the announcer goes like, "Wow, that was a terrible effort. These guys just gave up." Like it's, we're not getting the interim coach team playing hard type of thing from the Titans. We're getting the what we're done with this type of thing. So to me, if Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman are truly still want to run the ball when they can, and the reason they've
Yeah.
been so pass happy is they just haven't been able to, I think they're going to be able to here.
Oh,
And just my take on like the pass catchers, right? I have far less conviction than you on all of them, really. I think Ladd is the most talented guy, so I would always rank him first out of the three of them, right? And Gadsden's a tight end where it's harder to find points, right? I just do think that the passing slice of the pie. Like this year, that pie has been a massive pie because Justin Herbert throws like 40, 50 times a game, right? To me, I wouldn't be shocked to see sub 30 dropbacks here, right? And you have that smaller pie and it's cut up four ways. It's like, what do we want to do with this? It just wouldn't shock me if like randomly Keenan Allen gets 6 for 56 yards and a touchdown and he's the leading receiver in this one, right?
yeah,
It wouldn't shock me if QJ has a long touchdown and Ladd has like a dud for some reason. That's why
yeah.
it's like I don't know. Like I definitely prefer Ladd. To me, like my I guess objection was I wanted to put Allen and QJ as tricky decisions because I really do think it's any of them at any week. And it's not that I think they're bad players. I just think that the Chargers have this issue that like the Lions have had and the 49ers have had when they were healthy and good, like where they just have a lot of guy mouths to feed and inevitably someone's gonna miss out on that, right? But it's not anything to do with
Yeah.
any anything else. All right, next one. And unfortunately, I'm too invested in fantasy on this game, so I'm gonna be forced to watch it. I'm gonna be forced to watch
Nice.
Caleb Williams and the Bears
Nice.
for the first time this season. They're getting cover to cover from me. They're going into Cincinnati to play the Bengals. The Bears have an implied team total of 26.75 points, and the Bengals have an implied team total of 23.75 points. For the Bears, we're gonna start Caleb. More on that in a minute. We're gonna start Rome Odunze. We're gonna start DeAndre Swift, and Colston Loveland is gonna be starting for us this week. This is your last tryout, buddy. I will give up hope on you if it's not this week. We're gonna sit DJ Moore, and then tricky decision Kyle Manungai. He just continues to be involved in this offense. The post by rookie bump was kinder to him than it was to Colston Loveland or Luther Burden. For the Bengals, we're going to start Joe Flacco if he goes. Big fat asterisk on there because he has a AC joint sprain. So you're asking a 41-year-old guy to go out there with an AC joint sprain because that's how much they hate Jake Browning in Cincinnati. God, please go, Joe. I need Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to be good here. We're starting Jamar Chase and Chase Brown no matter what. And then T. Higgins, if Flacco goes, I'm interested in the start here. And let's start with the Bengals first. I feel like this is more just if Flacco plays, right? If Flacco plays, I have pretty high confidence in all of those four guys to be the fantasy relevant options going forward. The Chicago Bears team is missing 4 to 5 members of their secondary. They are just completely banged up. It's like the juiciest possible matchup. For one roster that I have T. Higgins and Ricky Pearsall on, I've been really excited about Ricky Pearsall. I'm a Ricky Pearsall bull. Like I really am a believer in Ricky Pearsall. Most weeks I would start Ricky Pearsall over T Higgins in my flex, even with Joe Flacco. But I was going to start T Higgins here, even if Ricky went, because of this matchup. It's so good. I get Jamar Chase has like 55 targets or 60 targets over the last 3 weeks or something insane with Joe Flacco. But T. Higgins has gotten in the end zone. His targets have still been low, but he's been doing more with them. They've been higher value. If Jake Browning plays and it's not Joe Flacco, I think I'd still start Chase Brown. I'd still start Jamar Chase. Higgins is more of a tricky decision for me there.
Yep.
I don't know. It's like it's so bad. Like the Bears defense is so bad. Jake Browning is so bad that it's like, well, what do we do here? Maybe Jake Browning plays and he comes out and looks really good. Like, it would be I've seen crazier things in the NFL, but T. Higgins is only a comfortable start for me if Joe Flacco plays, I guess, is like the moral of the story there. For the Bears, man, Caleb Williams, we're gonna extend the olive branch to you, Caleb. I get that you have been terrible for the past 3 weeks of the season, or I guess the last three games you played with the two of those teams, including the Las Vegas Raiders and the banged up Baltimore Ravens. But we just saw the Jets get their first win against this Cincinnati Bengals team. We just saw Justin Fields put up a 20 burger against the Cincinnati Bengals. It's a good matchup. I think you can get him in lineups if you need him, right? Like I'm starting Herbert over Caleb this week though. He's like a low end quarterback one to me. And if he looks bad here, I think that a conversation, like a bigger conversation, is going to need to happen surrounding Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears as a whole. If you're the Bears, you need to cover this number. You like it cannot be close. Like regardless, it should not be close. If they look bad, Caleb has another bad performance. I'm just about out of patience with that situation. Roma Dunze, he's really been the big winner. He's been the big story of this season for Chicago to me. Like I've said this multiple weeks. I don't see that much of a difference in what Caleb Williams is this year versus last year. I see a huge difference in what Roma Dunze's usage is, in what he's doing on the football field. His role in the offense has really kind of matured. I was slow on the draw to Adunze being the clear alpha. Like I'll be the first to admit that, but I don't want to just hastily throw away DJ Moore. Like I think he's a good player, right? And I was like, well, I don't know. It seems like a lot of projection, but I've seen enough. Roma Dunze, he's like a back end wide receiver one for me this week. Like if I had to rank him, he's probably anywhere from 8 to 11 is where I'd have him. DeAndre Swift, he's been really good the last 3 weeks. Ever since the bye. Like other than the Kyle Monunga, it's really the Bears running game as a whole were the big winners in the post bye rookie bump for some reason. I don't know if Ben Johnson is kind of sick of Caleb trying to play hero ball, or the Bears blocking scheme figured something out. But Swift has looked explosive. He's averaged 6 yards a carry over this 3 week sample size. And it doesn't get any easier than the Cincinnati Bengals. We just saw Brees Hall put up 38 against them. I don't see that here, especially with Kyle Monungai being involved, but I think he's a comfortable RB2 start this week, no problem. And then Colston Loveland, this is the big one. It has been horrendous all year. I drafted Colston Loveland in two teams, so I had 40% roster exposure to him. He was off my team by week 4. One roster was desperate enough. I needed a tight end this week to fill in for Mason Taylor. I said, okay, buddy, like matchups don't get better than this. Luther Burden is out. If Caleb is good, it sounds like Cole Kmet's going to be out, right? Everything is lining up here for Colston Loveland to get usage in this offense. I think he's a fine back end tight end one. Like if you really are out of options, he should be there on waivers. I don't see why anyone would be excited and go get him. I think you can do it this week, in the hopes that the Bears offense looks good, Caleb doesn't look like trash, and Ben Johnson, with lack of other options, decides, hey, we got to get Loveland in here. If it's not like, I don't know what the bar I want to put on it is, right? If it's not like more than 4 targets, if it's not like 5+ targets, I'm out of the Loveland business. But give it one last shot this week. I think he's drafted in the top 10. There's no way he's a bad player. I don't think it's just the usage has been gross. DJ Moore has just been not great. Like, I don't know. Is this like Yanni? Is this a sit relative to like, I don't know, relative to where we normally have him, or is this just like a under no circumstances do you want DJ Moore in the lineup? I didn't even ask about this.
I mean, I'll pull up his Yahoo. Let me see real quick what his like even last month has been. So he's had one and half PPR, dude. He's had one game where they went double digits. That's it. Like all season. His last month, he's gone 6.7, 6.7, 9.6, 5.8. So like, I mean, to me, it's just a matter of like, do you need an emergency start? Um,
I don't know. I think it's because I saw that flashy catch that he had on the sideline last week, and then on that ball that Caleb badly missed him in the back of the end zone, like that's a touchdown. the quarterback doesn't
Yeah.
suck. Like, so it's like, you know, I don't know. He would be more desperation to me than anything else, but
Yeah.
maybe,
That, like, don't cut him. He's not like a
yeah,
cut, and he's not like a like I would if you needed someone to plug in, I would rather start him than waiver wire fodder. And I still personally think, even though we all like to fantasize about trades and they never happen, I still wouldn't be surprised to see a team go get him. Like, do the Patriots want to get Drake May, a wide receiver one, moving into the future? Do the Giants want to get Jackson Dart, a wide receiver one, moving into the future? Do the Bills want to get Josh Allen, a wide receiver one, moving in the future? So, like, there's that too. I just, dude, like, I don't. How can you start someone who's gone double digits and half PPR 1 out of 7 games this year? That's what it
the
is.
only argument would be the Bengals. Right, that's it. Like Brees Hall was struggling until he played the Bengals. I don't know. Like for me, he's a tricky decision. For Yanni, he's a sit. Like whatever you want to do with that. I don't have any DJ Moore exposure this year. I got out of that game, so maybe it doesn't hurt me as much.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, definitely not the player we thought we were drafting. That's for sure. Then Kyle Monungai, tricky decision. He's quietly post by, been like a very clear like 1B
Yeah.
in this rushing offense that's been pretty good. I think he's getting anywhere from like 30 to 40% of the snaps. Maybe it's more than that. He's getting some goal line too. It's not all Swift on the goal line. I think that like they're like the Walmart version of Gibbs and Monty. And if you were desperate, like bye weeks or whatever, you could do it. Friend of the show, Eric, went in the comments and was laughing about your take on Manungai last week. Yanni, he goes, he's like, I
Oh,
was
that's funny.
dying. He said I was dying when Yanni was talking about how unhappy he was flexing Kyle Manungai. I don't know.
Oh,
I think it could be
uh,
worse than that, man. He looks like a fine player to me. He's not like definitely he's not just some like seventh round guy. I don't think. Like
no.
it looks like he
Um,
definitely has a role in this offense for sure.
I mean, dude, to like Ben Johnson is, I don't know, like, I consume a lot of Bears content, dude, because I'm such a Ben Johnson fan. Like, I watch their locker room speeches, I watch their post game interviews, I watch their summer content all year. Ben Johnson's like a very particular, like a hard ass dude. He's not like that. Is not some like he's not a Mike McDaniel offensive guy. Like, he's a hard ass dude. Like, he reminds me of like some dude that would be running a restaurant in Hell's Kitchen in New York, kind of thing. For a seventh rounder to come in there and to have earned a role like that and to be doing what he's doing, clearly this is one of like his guys that he likes. Yeah, but I don't think, to me, it's also, though, like, my whole thing with Swift was he was not playing great ball for the first month, and then all of a sudden for the last 3 or 4 weeks he's actually been playing really well. So it's like, I don't think Swift is going anywhere, but I also think like Monongai needs to be rostered everywhere, and I think he would be trusted with close to a 3 down workload if Swift were to get injured
Yeah,
you know
absolutely. My Swift roster, it has Manungai on there. He's unmovable
Yeah.
for me. I ended up dropping Tyrone Tracy when I shouldn't
uh
have to keep Kyle Manungai instead. So
Yeah.
that's where we're at. Anything else on this one?
No, I mean, I actually think with how banged up the Bears secondary is, like, Higgins isn't going to bust. He's not going to donut for you, even if Jake Browning needs to go. And honestly, with how banged up their secondary is, like, Jamar Chase might still give you 25 if it's with Jake Browning. So I don't think all is lost if it's not Flacco. It's just that, like, with Flacco, they've been top 5 in offensive pass EPA and success rate on pass plays. Like, he's actually totally taken their offense to like a different level that even than it was with Joe Burrow for the first week. So, like, to me, you are going to lose maybe some of that mega ceiling, but I still think both of those guys will perform. It's just to what degree do they perform?
Please be healthy, Joe. I need to beat Yanni.
Oh, oh, how embarrassing would that be? Because you have a better team than me in League Seven. You would be 0-2 against me, and I would be missing the number one overall player in fantasy for a month and 2 top 10 running backs, and I would have still beaten you twice. Oh, the humiliation. Okay.
Well,
Uh,
it's all about the trophies, my friend. All about the
yeah, it
trophies.
is.
We'll see. We'll see.
It is.
We'll see if you're still talking shit week 17, buddy. All right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I'm up by 11 in the trophy department, but that's okay. We'll talk about it at the end of the season. Colts going to the Steelers with a 26.75 implied team total. At the Steelers with a 23.75 implied team total. I actually think Mike Tomlin's getting a lot of respect at home for them to set this thing at 3 points. It kind of feels like they're just daring bettors to take the Colts without the hook here. Maybe I'm going to be the idiot that does so. I don't know. Ted was last week. It was profitable. For the Colts, Daniel Jones is basically so here's what's weird. I was actually thinking about this on my walk to class this morning. I don't know why I was really preoccupied with fantasy football trends and I was thinking about how crazy it is that maybe for the first time in my fantasy life, this is my 10th season playing fantasy. For the first time in my fantasy life, I want players going against the Steelers, which is absolutely wild. Like the Steelers are a plus matchup in fantasy, which like when I started playing, it was like, oh my God, they were an eraser. This was like during the Ben Roethlisberger era when you really had like a scary defense and run game there, the Killer Bees. They've fallen so far from grace that like anyone that's a borderline start, I don't know how Michael Pittman Jr. would be a borderline start for you again, unless your roster crushed it. Like you would have to have a really, I mean, I guess actually Ted has one roster where that I can think of with Pittman Jr. that's not a weekly start. I do actually have a couple that are pretty loaded. But like, dude, Pittman is like, I think he's the wide receiver 6 or 7 on the
He's the
year
wide
right.
receiver 6 on the year. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's the wide receiver 6 on the year, man. Like to me, I think we just need to drop our priors about that and evaluate Pittman as a weekly must start, especially in a matchup like this. So I'm rolling Pittman for sure rolling Daniel Jones. Jonathan Taylor, what do you need to say? He's on pace for the third best fantasy season in the history of fantasy football. And then Tyler Warren, I just love Tyler Warren, man. This was a guy that I have extremely heavy bags on in fantasy. He is currently pacing to match or break Brock Bowers' rookie year record-breaking season for tight end. He's just been that good. It's such a comfortable start. You plug him in, you get him rolling. He actually, an interesting stat about him I saw today, 78% of his fantasy points have been scored in the first half of games. So really take a minute and think about that. He's like the tight end 2 or 3. 78% of his points have come in the first half. Why? Because they're usually blowing teams out so badly by the second half they don't have to keep passing. So to me, that means like his ceiling right now. So 75% in the front half, 78%, but 75%, let's say in the first half, 25% in the second half of games. That means 50% hypothetically. So 50% of that means he potentially has 50% more production to go on a per game basis in games where they actually have to keep passing, which means his ceiling in any given week where they may have to actually get in a shootout is the tight end 1 overall every week, rest of season, locked and loaded. So like, dude, God willing, the Steelers turn this thing into a contest where they have to keep passing. Jalen Warren's live for 20 points. They really haven't, for the most part this year, they've been kicking the dog shit out of teams. So they have not had to keep passing, but that stat is really mind boggling. That means in competitive games, there is 50% more ceiling for Warren to access that he hasn't accessed yet. And he is already on a record setting pace as a rookie. Just remarkable what he's done this year. But yeah, I love those 4 guys, dude. If you have those 4 guys, even Daniel Jones is a fantasy asset. Like I think he's going to finish as a QB1 this year. I think there's going to be weeks where he spikes to QB3 or 4. And I think he's live to do it here. And then for the other Colts receivers, Downs has been in and out of the lineup. I don't know what his health status is this week. It's been so messy to track. I'm kind of a Downs detractor. Like I've just never, ever had bags on the guy. I've never been interested in that archetype of player, so I don't really track him carefully, to be honest with you. But when Downs is out, Pierce has actually become a viable flex play. So like I don't if Downs is out and you need an emergency guy with the way this game profiles and with how leaky the Steelers defense has been, Pierce then becomes an interesting flex to me. For the Steelers, I'm starting Warren. I'm starting DK Metcalf. I know DK has been kind of rough the last few weeks. The Colts secondary is in shambles. It's going to be a passing game script. I think DK is live here to go for 20. And then Jalen Warren. What else do you say? To me, this is like a sneaky guy who's getting RB1 usage in an RB2 profile. He will never be valued that way by the fantasy community. He'll probably never even be valued as a top 15 running back by the fantasy community, but I think he should be. I think he is a guy who's getting between the passing volume and the rushing volume. He fended off Gainwell. Gainwell incurred on his workload a little bit a week or 2 after injury, but that's totally gone away. Like he's a smaller frame guy. Can his body hold up to the beating over the whole season? Remains to be seen. He has a bad playoff schedule, fair enough. But like until then, he has an amazing run here. We are locking and loading him in as a weekly set it and forget it starter. You will see him in the start column every week. We're sitting the tight ends. God, I wish we could conglomerate the tight ends into just one amalgamous blob of Steelers tight end. Then that would be one of the best starts in all of fantasy football, but we cannot do that. If you're going to start one, I prefer the Muth, but really I prefer to sit all of them. And then sort of tricky decision at Ted's behest, which I think he's correct to do so. so I think I missed it having Aaron as a sit here at first. Is Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers has been airing the ball. He's been playing pretty good ball. We've gotten a couple like really fun games out of Aaron here in prime time the last few weeks. I think he's looked great. I think he's looked great. Yeah, I think if you need a streamer this week, you could certainly do a lot worse. Like I would prefer to start Aaron over Bo Nix this week. I think Aaron outscores Bo Nix. If you've been streaming Joe Flacco and you need to go to the wire to get someone, I think that's fine if you got to get Aaron. I still prefer other streamers like Trevor Lawrence. I would still Stafford was on a few waivers, which he shouldn't be, but like Stafford at New Orleans, I certainly prefer. But like Aaron's fine. I think Aaron puts up points this week.
Yeah, I guess for the Steelers, right? For me, Jalen Warren is more of a flex. Like he's a reliable flex, but the reason I feel like that is it seems like in negative game scripts, they're more willing to throw Kenny Gainwell out there in like the obvious passing downs, and Aaron passes a bunch, right? So in this particular instance, I feel like the Colts probably score a lot of points here. The rah rah Tomlin spot used to be a thing, but now it's dead. Even Chad and Simon were talking about how it's not the same this week. I was so proud of them.
Really? Are
Yes,
they in?
yes,
Are they in on the Colts?
they said they lean the Colts. Yes, yes, they did.
So that's it. So because to me it should have been like 4.5 or 5.5. So that's interesting. I wonder if that'll make an appearance in my picks.
Well,
Go
I
on. I'm
mean,
sorry to interrupt you.
but no, I mean the whole thing behind that, right, is the rah rah Tomlin spot, the Steelers home underdogs. That was always built off the back of these awesome defenses, right? And I just feel like that's not what this iteration of the Steelers defense is, and they're going up against the team that's like leading the history of the NFL in points per drive, right? So to me, it feels like the Steelers are negative game script here. Aaron has to throw a lot, and he will do that with like pretty good success, I think, against a Colts secondary that's not great. Justin Herbert threw for 420 on them, and I don't know. Like I'm still starting Warren this week. Like he's my RB1 on one roster just because of the way things turned out. But I like to start here. I got nothing on the Colts. They're just savage. I just traded away Daniel Jones in a package. It felt disgusting. I got Aaron back in that package. It was I traded away Daniel Jones, Xavier Worthy, and Trevion Henderson for Aaron, George Kittle, and Woody Marks. It's a super team that needed like a tight end. I'll even flash up the team on here. It's insane, man. That I don't think I've ever fielded a better roster than that. Really stoked about it. And speaking of George Kittle, we got our San Francisco 49ers, the crippled, hobbled, somehow that you know what? It reminds me, have you seen that South Park episode where they're making fun of the old Redskins owner, Dan Snyder, and he goes out there like with a tie around his head and he's just getting his ass beat by the Cowboys and he just keeps getting up. I feel like that's our 49ers this year, man. What an absolute it's just a war, man. Every week that happens, we have three or four more guys that are injured, and we're taking the show on the road to MetLife to play the New York Giants. And MetLife is notorious for having a turf that injures players. Does someone else go down here? I think there's a pretty good chance. Somehow
Oh
we're still
no.
favored, 25 and a half points. The Giants have an implied team total of 23 points, so pretty high Vegas total here. Vegas says there's going to be a lot of scoring. For the Niners, we're starting CMC and George Kittle. We're going to sit Kendrick Bourne, and then we're going to make Jawan Jennings and Michael McCorkle Jones as a tricky decision. Just really quick, Brock Purdy is practicing in a limited fashion this week, so you're going to see him popping up on the injury report is limited. I don't think he goes this week though. Kyle Shanahan said some like very leading things about the nature of Brock's toe. If one thing goes wrong, then it'll set him back. So I think it's Mac here. Then for the Giants, we're going to start Jackson Dart if he goes. Wandale Robinson, I disgusting, but yes, I would do it. And new RB1 for the New York Giants, Tyrone Tracy. We're going to sit Darius Slayton, and then we're going to tricky decision Theo Johnson. And we'll start with our Niners first. The injuries have mostly like conglomerated on like the defensive end for like just in-game injuries this year. So the offense is still like at least functional. They didn't have a great game against the Texans last week, but part of that was because the defense couldn't stop anyone and the Texans were on the field all game. And the other part of that is that Texans defense is really good, right? CMC had it like a down week, and when we say down week, I think he was like 10 to 12 like half PPR points. this is the New York Giants, man. They get absolutely gashed on the ground. Saquon just had his first real eruption spot last week against them. This feels like a good CMC spot here. I think he's like in the top 1 to 2 conversation this week. Then George Kittle. We really haven't had like that crazy good George Kittle game yet. There was the zero catch game against the Falcons, which I feel like was kind of circumstantial and weird. He only got in the paint once against the Texans on National Tight Ends Day. I feel like Kittle's still a buy low for me. I feel like that eruption is coming, and it could be this week. I think there's a good chance against this version of the Giants defense. We're gonna tricky decision, Jawan. He's been getting more targets than Kendrick Bourne. Like Kendrick Bourne was a hero for like 2 weeks, and then it seems like when Jawan came back, Kendrick Bourne has slowly been getting less and less of the work, and Jawan has been getting more and more of the work. But Jawan, he's going out there too. He's still playing, but he's also aggressively banged up. He has his like broken ribs he's been working through, his messed up ankle. He's getting rocked every single week he's out there. Every single time Jawan gets hit, he just looks like he's in pain out there, and he just gets up and keeps going, which credits to the dude, tough as nails. It seems like he might not be a Niner for much longer, but I would tricky decision him here. It's a plus matchup. He's going to be matched up against Paulson and Debo on the outside. It's not the it's not Sertan out there for sure. And then Mac Jones, tricky decision. He's just been playing really good football, man. Like it's just really good football for what it is. Man, I don't know. Like it feels like the Niners will be able to run more, but I just like the Niners offense as a whole in this spot. For me, like Mac Jones is more of a super flex option, or if you're desperate, quarterback one, but you could do it, I guess. For the Giants, Dart, this Niners defense, like we've said, is so banged up. I think they're like probably at least a bottom 10 unit in the league now, their current iteration, if not worse than that. You think bottom 5? Okay, so we're hitting the panic button. It's just they're running out of bodies. Like the defensive line has sustained such injury that they're terrible now, and you can kind of do whatever you want to them. So I don't know, man. Jackson Dart's been pretty good in most of the games this year. He presents the rushing upside. I feel like the rushing lanes will be open. The Niners have historically struggled with mobile quarterbacks, which Dart is, so I think it's fine. Wandale Robinson, this is just the theory that the Niners defense is so banged up, right? And Upton Stout is going to be who he's matched up against. Upton Stout's kind of been getting worked in the slot a little bit this year. He's still a rookie, so I like the kid. I think he's a pretty good corner. But Wandale's been one of the premier slot receivers, apparently, I guess, this year. I think he's more of a flex play to me, but in a plus matchup, hate to say it, start him. Then Tyrone Tracy. We talked about this on the free agent episode, but I think he's stepping in anywhere to the neighborhood of 18 to 22 touches this game. I think it's going to be primarily him. Already a good player. It's just that there was another even better player on the team. This Niners D line is trash, though. Their current iteration. I think the Giants should have success running here. They're not going to get stuffed, I don't think. We're sitting Darius Slayton. It's just like, why are you going after the other Giants passing game options, right? Diamador Lenore should be on him. Just got his first pick last week. He's like one of the best players on the Niners. That's healthy at this current time. Then Theo Johnson, tricky decision. You've kind of been down the last couple weeks, but the Giants really haven't had that much success throwing the football. I feel like they're gonna have the Giants are going to have success offensively here. Theo Johnson is a relevant piece of the offense. He's been getting a lot of like targets. I think he's like anywhere in the neighborhood of 4 or 5 targets. The Niners have been struggling to cover tight end, especially with Fred being out, one of the best cover tight ends or best cover linebackers in the game. I like Theo Johnson here in this spot, like as a back end tight end one. What do you think, man? A lot of talk in there, but I'm passionate about our Niners. I hate to see how the season has gone.
Yeah, dude. My feed is obviously very Niners heavy, and it just kills me to see like fans trying to say we still have a shot this year or whatever. You just have to understand what that level of decimation of talent, and not just like sort of talent, of like Hall of Fame caliber talent, when you lose two of those guys and then you lose the replacement guy, and then you already lost in the offseason and all pro, and then the other linebacker. It's just like It's just not a competitive defense anymore. I do think when everyone gets back, it looks like Ayuk's practice window is getting opened next week is probably the target date. And then it seems like Parasol should be back. Like 6 weeks is the longest for a PCL. He's been out 5 weeks. So like I do think when these guys get on the field with how bad the defense is, that's going to be a pretty banging situation for like fantasy options. But yeah, until that happens, I just would not expect much. So
I'm still holding out hope Ricky can come back this week, but I think it's a long shot
no,
based on a Wednesday DMP. Like,
he was a DNP today, dude. There's just no, I don't. The problem with that PCL is it destabilizes the ACL. So it's like, dude, if he's feeling any sort of weirdness with his PCL, his ACL is at risk. There's just no way. There is no way with the things that have happened to this team that they would put out Ricky Parasol with the chance he tears his ACL. By the way, never missed a single snap in college. Never. One of his selling points was that he played until he was 24 years old in college and did not miss a single snap. So he's been shot and almost blew out his knee since he's been on the Niners.
yeah, I mean, is a heavy Ricky investor, if he sat this one out on MetLife turf, well, it would hurt me this week. I don't know. Maybe we avoid another disaster, but it'll be someone else, surely. There is
Yeah.
no way we come out of this game without at least one season-ending injury.
Oh,
Just a fucking
God.
disaster, man.
Yeah, I believe the last time I can recall them being there was the Nick Bosa first ACL. Oh, God, man, fun times being a Niners fan. All right. I'll be honest with you, just from a standpoint of like, so one of the most exciting things about sports, like combat sports, NFL, whatever, I love a good story, right? And what I love is like we build up the story and then you get the resolution and it happens live. It's not a movie where someone wrote it out, so we know the hero's not going to die here. This, no, 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 no. When you see a sports story unfolding, this thing's gonna fucking happen in front of you. And the JJ McCarthy story is gonna fucking happen this week. The Lions at home coming off a drubbing last week. Like, dude, the Lions look like they are heading for a Super Bowl run of the most legitimate of Super Bowl runs. They are as good as any team in the NFC. They're not quite, I wouldn't say as good as the Chiefs are this year, but like they're damn close, man. They're as good of football as anyone's
Mm-mm.
playing are the Detroit Lions in the NFL. And they get a fledgling JJ McCarthy off a wounded ankle after the previous quarterback that tried to make it here played with a broken arm for 3 weeks. So there is drama, man. Does Justin Jefferson lose a year of his prime where he doesn't have these gaudy 1,500, 1,700-yard receiving numbers? We get to find out this week. The Vikings with an implied team total of 20 points, going to the Lions with an implied team total of 28. Again, the highest of stakes as far as the direction these two franchises take. If the Lions want to win the Super Bowl this year, home field advantage at Detroit in Detroit is massive. To do that, they need to win these games against their weaker division opponents on the road, which means the Bears and the Vikings at home need to be 2 wins that are penciled in on their record. So to me, like this is massive stakes both ways. For the Vikings, like I know JJ McCarthy struggled. Like, dude, he's got to step up here, right? Uh, and look, so with this matchup with injured secondary members, I think you can start Jefferson and Addison with confidence. They're going to have to pass the ball a lot. They are starts for us. I know everyone's been saying to sell Addison this week. I mean, he's been like a back end, almost a wide receiver one, like a high end wide receiver two with Wentz. Does it get way worse with JJ McCarthy? Maybe we didn't really see him play with JJ McCarthy. I think it's fine. Stick him in your flex, but we're gonna sit both running backs. We're gonna sit TJ Hawkinson. We're gonna sit JJ McCarthy here. I actually think if you guys want to, if you have a 2 quarterback roster, if you have Lamar Jackson and you're a little bit nervous about whether or not he hangs in there, whatever. If you have like a Matt Stafford rostered, if you've been starting Trevor Lawrence, if you want to stash JJ McCarthy as a second quarterback with how juicy their schedule is rest of the season, I actually would do that this week if you have the room to, but I would not start him here. We just don't know, and maybe he's not even 100% healthy. Maybe they're rolling him out there a week than they would prefer to. I'm not sure. Those guys are all going to be sits for us. We'll see what happens. The highest of drama, and I want it on record, I comped JJ McCarthy to a more blue chip Brock Purdy. To me, he looked a lot like Brock Purdy with a better arm and better legs and a bigger body. So, like, I still think that's what I saw in his college tape. I actually still think in the long run he's going to be just fine. But this is like, it's all happening at once here where he's got to go and take the field in this massive moment. And that is a tall task, dude. The Lions were a tall task for the Buccaneers. The Lions were a tall task for the Ravens. Like I just don't know what they get out of here. For the Lions, pretty straightforward. Sitting Jamison Williams. Jamison Williams is a complete liability in your starting lineup. He's nothing more than an emergency flex. I have a roster with 3 injuries. I will flex JMO, but I'm not happy about it. Good chance he gets you 2 points. Good chance he gets you 17. The thing with JMO is he's had 2 spike weeks this year that were like 14 to 17 point spike weeks, and the rest were 0 to 4 points. His spike weeks aren't even league winning spike weeks. It's not like when he goes like when Worthy is going to have. I've seen this comparison a lot this week that Worthy is basically just Jamison Williams now. I don't know about that because when Worthy goes off, it's like for 2 touchdowns and 170 yards, and you won your week on the Worthy start. JMO's spike weeks have been like 15 points on average over 2 weeks. It's to me, it's just a gross fantasy asset. It's the kind of fantasy asset I never want to roster, and I will never roster again. I took the cheese. I believe they were going to expand his role. I followed the money with the contract extension. I feel like a fucking idiot. For the Lions, Goff. I think you can start Goff almost every week with how good their offense has looked. He's going to give you duds if they run the ball in too many times in the red zone, but at least their offense is scoring touchdowns at one of the highest clips in the NFL. I certainly would start him here. I would start him almost any time he's playing in a dome, which they are for like 6 of their next 8 games or something like that, 7 of their next 8 games. They are inside in a dome. It's an awesome situation to be a Goff manager. Gibbs. Does Gibbs push into that top 3 conversation? He has not been there yet this year. I hope he does. We had our first Gibbs explosion last week, which felt great. He's been pretty high floor, but like we haven't gotten what he was turning in last year, which part of it was Monty was out, but like those 30 plus weeks for a few weeks in a row, we haven't gotten that. Do we start getting that here? I hope so. I'm a heavy Gibbs investor, but you're certainly starting him. Monty, when they're set to blow out a team by 8.5 point spread, you're going to go ahead and start Monty. Good chance he gets in the end zone. Amon-Ra St. Brown, don't need to say anything. We know the deal. Locked in, top 5, one of the best players in the NFL. And then Laporta. I know Laporta's been hit or miss, but I just think with the state of tight end, you're really not sitting him. I do like his odds to do something here. Just because Jameson's been so down, to me, it's like Laporta and Amon-Ra switching off on the passing production. So you're good to go there. I do think you want to get, with the exception of J.J. McCarthy and the running backs here, I think you want to get these pieces in the game. If any of these guys, and Jameson, obviously, if any of these guys are fringe guys for you, like Laporta or Monty or Addison, like I do think they're all guys that you probably want in your flex or your starting tight end spot or your RB2 spot this week.
Yeah, I think that's anytime the Lions are at home or in a dome, like you said, that's where I think you start trying to force all these guys in your lineup and take advantage of that. Like, given the
Yeah.
nature of the team, right? It's like the Chargers to me, where it's like one of these guys probably won't get home. But like if you just follow that process, I feel like that's a good move. Then for the other side, I don't know, man. I've been seeing a lot of absolute takes about JJ McCarthy, and I don't know how we can say what this player is after 2 games, right? Like maybe this is a Trey Lance situation and the team thinks that he's so bad in practice that like they're done with him and he's done as a player. It could be Anthony Richardson, it could be Trey Lance, that type of thing. But I don't know, man. Like they let Sam Darnold walk for this guy in the offseason. The whole Vikings organization has been operating under the assumption that JJ McCarthy is going to be their franchise quarterback, right? They let Dimes out the building. In a story, I guess surfaced last week that was talking about how they had a contract for Daniel Jones that was similar to the Colts or whatever, right? But they wouldn't guarantee him the franchise quarterback spot because they were so in on JJ McCarthy. So the franchise is on him. It's Kevin O'Connell's guy. We've seen that one quarter against the Bears is really, really good. So I think we've seen what JJ McCarthy has the potential to do.
Yep.
I just wouldn't be panic selling your Vikings. I think it's on the board. I think that the entire media narrative has gotten too hasty with this thing, right? Like what rookie quarterbacks are immediately judged after 2 games, right? One of which was against the Falcons where he got like sacked 6 times. He had no time to do anything. It happened to Josh Allen when he played the Falcons too. So I don't know, man. I really like the idea of rostering him if you can, just in case. I'm
Yep.
still optimistic on Jefferson. I'm still optimistic on Addison. Hopefully, this is a good game. It's better when we have teams that are at least competitive, right? Interesting to watch. And the Vikings were not interesting to watch with me with Carson Wentz.
Did you see the Justin Jefferson trade in the fantasy flock league?
No, I didn't. No. What was
Uh,
it?
Dude, so by the way, that's been tremendous content. I don't normally like that stuff, like the fluff content of fantasy. I've actually found it fascinating to watch how a bunch of experts navigate a season because, like, I've always wondered how they do it when they're really in there. And it's interesting to see how many guys are objectively moronic in their decision making in a league like that, in a setting like that. So it was Derrick Henry, Justin Jefferson, Xavier Worthy. Derrick Henry, Justin Jefferson, Xavier Worthy from one of the from Nathan.
Yeah, the bug.
And, and then it went to for Puka Nakua, Jalen Warren, and Alec Pierce. So Puka Nakua, Jalen Warren, Alec Pierce for Justin Jefferson, Derrick Henry, and Xavier Worthy. And I could not believe that Nathan valued Puka Nakua and Jalen Warren at the value of Derrick Henry and Justin Jefferson.
That's
I thought that was,
crazy. That's the
dude,
first trade Danny Ladd has ever won.
I would not. Well, that's funny. That's what the Italian dude said. I would not do that, dude. That was like to me. That is like you're selling. He priced Justin Jefferson as like a wide receiver too. So yeah. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. I'm surprised you didn't see it.
All right, next game. We got this should be a drubbing. We got the New Orleans Saints, now led by Tyler Shuck. The team has come out and said they're giving it to Shuck the rest of the season. Not sure Spencer Rattler was really the problem in New Orleans, but that's what the team is taking the stance on. And they're going to play Jimmy and the Rams coming off a bye. The Saints have an implied team total of 14.5 points. That's pretty stinky or stinky, I guess. And the Rams have an implied team total of 29. For the Saints, we're going to say to start Chris Olave here. More on that in a minute, though. I think you should have your reservations if you are. And we're going to sit everyone else. No thank you to the rest of this team. The Rams defense has been pretty good. So it's like, do we want to start Alvin Kamara against one of the better rush defenses in the league? I'm not interested in that, right? Do we want to try and get Jawan Johnson out there against the Rams? Maybe it's a Taysom Hill week. Like this might be the week Taysom Hill falls in the end zone, but I don't know how you predict that. Then for the Rams, it is that we're back to neutral here. This is the standard. Iteration of the Los Angeles Rams. We're starting Matt Stafford, Puka Nakua, Devontae Adams, and Kyren Williams with full confidence. You know, I don't even think I'll start with the Rams because I don't think there's anything to really say about it, right? Puka should be back this week. That's really all there is to say. Devontae Adams had like a weird week against the Jaguars 2 weeks ago with Puka out, where he got like 3 touchdowns and like 50 yards or something bizarre. I think we return to neutral here though, with Adams working the deeper routes, Puka being one of the best possession wide receivers I've ever seen. Right, Matt Stafford not mobile but dealing, and Kyren Williams is just the Sean McVay running back. So we're starting them here in a plus matchup. That's it for them. For the Saints, it's just Chris Olave's been good. He's had really good usage the entire year. Like so far, like he was going in fantasy drafts like round 8, which for the talent of the player that was like aggressively low in drafts, but people were doing that because they were kind of hedging their bets against the New Orleans Saints sucking, right? We had about a 6 week stretch where Spencer Rattler, I think he's like, I still think Spencer Rattler is like a starting quarterback in the NFL, probably. Not a good one. Like he's probably closer to like 30, 31 in the league, but at least what I saw from him is like he can start in this league. He'll probably be a career backup, and I think that's fine for him. What I don't understand is when you're getting at least something from your quarterback, like why you're benching him for the rest of the season, over like 2 weeks where he threw a couple picks. For Tyler Shuck, I think this is more so evaluation for next year than anything else. But all of that's to say, I worry that the Saints offense and team is about to get worse with Tyler Shuck in here. The only reason Olave is a start with us is because the usage has been so good. He's more of a flex to me, just like he kind of has been all year, but I'd be on lookout, man. If Shuck just completely blows and the Saints have given him the rest of the season, or at least that's what they're saying they're doing, I feel like Olave could almost be a trade high candidate for me at this point. We're going to give him the benefit of the doubt here, though, because the usage has been good thus far. Short one, but not much to say about this game. What do you think, man?
No, we're just chasing volume with Olave. It's not a good situation. It's really not. Is it a sustainable situation? I have no idea. Um, it's just that he's getting fed so much. I think he's a good upside flex. Yeah, not too much else to say. Pretty straightforward. Expect the Rams to do well here.
The fantasy footballers, I was watching their content this week, and Jason, the guy who sits in the middle, the kind of bigger one, but he's very funny. He goes, you know who Tyler Shuck reminds me of, or reminded me of in the second half last week? He reminded me of Spencer Rattler. So,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah.
you know what? If Shuck is Spencer Rattler in this offense and it's just like replacement and nothing is significantly worse, Olave will be fine rest of season. It's just like if Shuck blows. The 26-year-old rookie, by the way. He's like
Yeah.
I remember when Brandon Whedon came into the league and he was like an old man rookie. That's what Shuck is.
Yeah, I'm not expecting too much. Okay, Jags going to the Raiders. Vegas isn't expecting too much from the Jags, giving them a 3-point spread here on the road. Implied team total of 23.75 for them. Going to the Raiders with an implied team total of 20.75 at home. Brock Bowers was taken off the injury report today, so he is good to go, and he is a start for us for the Raiders and a start for us for the rest of the year. Real chance that he becomes the tight end one on the rest of the season. We'll find out here. But I think certainly his floor is like top five. And I would be shocked if there was anything less than that. I think he's going to get absolutely force-fed targets with the state of the Raiders offense. Also, an interesting note: Aiden O'Connell had his practice window opened up this week from IR. So is a Geno benching potentially on the table? I don't know. Jacoby Myers is begging to get traded. Does he get traded? I don't know. A lot up in the air with the Raiders, but what's not up in the air is Brock Bowers. And then Ashton Genty, he was getting some targets like intermittently for a little bit this year, and then they sort of stopped. He had a down week going into the bye. I still just think you're starting him every week. Like I do wonder, is he more of like, so the Yahoo guys, Matt Harmon and Justin Boone, that who I really like, I really respect their process because Matt Harmon is probably like the industry leader in charting wide receiver routes, and he's starting to do from reception perception, and he's starting to do running back perception and charting running back runs and stuff. He's just got an interesting and unique, like kind of a novel way that he looks at the game that I like. So I do take their opinion seriously. I like to hear what they say. They were saying like, is Genty a borderline RB2 rest of season? Like, is he more just like a top 24 guy, not quite a high end RB2 even? I think that's probably too far. But I don't really know like what to me. It's like if it's an easy matchup, yeah, I think he's going to smash. I think he has RB1 upside every week that it's a good matchup. But I do think his floor now is like not even RB2. I think his floor is an RB3. He's had like 5 to 7 point weeks multiple times this year. The Jags are a pretty good defense. They're not amazing, but they've played good ball, but they tapered off. It's just hard to balance all that out and say that you're not going to consider starting Genty. I just think you start him every week. But I, with how bad that offense is, with how bad the O line is, with how small, whatever, even if he has a giant percent of their touchdown equity, it's just so small. I don't know. Genty's future is very much just a weird thing for me, but I think he's got to stay in your starting lineup, and I think he's got to stay a start every week. The Jags are a much more interesting conversation. I think Trevor is one of the best streamers you can have this week. He's been using his legs more. He actually gave you a few 20 plus point weeks, which has been pretty rare in his career up to this point, but he's been doing it this year. Obviously, Liam Cohen's really helping him in that regard. Like, I think Trevor is a great quarterback streamer, so he is a start for us this week. Travis Etienne, I know that he was killing you guys for 3 weeks before the bye, but that was against three of the best rush defenses in the league and one of the hardest stretches for running back over that time. He was crushing it earlier in the year against softer competition. I think there's a valid question of coming out of the bye. What do we do with Tootin here? Coming out of the Tampa Bay bye, Rashad White basically never got his job back. It was like below 50-50. Bucky Irving was just spelling Rashad White up to that point. And then afterward, Bucky vaunted up to 19 touches per game. The Jags have two rookies that have looked pretty good in LaQuint Allen and Bayshal Tootin. Do they change something? Maybe. I still think in this one there's going to be such a lead and such a propensity to run the ball for the Jags. Like I'm not worried about it here, but it is something to watch. Like if they come out and all of a sudden Bayshaw gets 15 to 20 touches, they may have just decided they're going to see what they have in the youngin and they're not going to seek to re-sign Etienne, who's on the last year of his rookie deal. But he is a start for us here. And then the wide receivers, the most interesting conversation to have about Jacksonville. Coming off a 14 target game, we are going to tell you guys to go ahead and fire up Travis Hunter as a flex, as a low end wide receiver too. I don't think he's going to be a wide receiver one this week like he was last week. I think he was like top half of wide receiver one last week. He had 20.1 and half PPR. That was when they were trailing pretty aggressively, and he started to go off at the very end there when they were airing out the ball after Brian Thomas Jr. got banged up. I think those were pretty specific circumstances which led to that. But I'm interested in him as a startable flex guy this week. That's how I feel about him. Part of the reason I feel that way, and part of the reason we have Brian Thomas Jr. as a sort of tricky decision here, is because they announced this week, we had actually alluded to it in our free agent show, in our trade show, that he did have a subluxation or a partial dislocation of the shoulder, which can injure your labrum, it can injure your shoulder rotator cuff. That's what he's been dealing with. We free Tendies fantasy told you guys we caught it on camera during the games. The way that he recoiled when he put his arms out, what it interferes with is your ability to extend your arms. So it's a really interesting like injury that he's playing through. You can get it repaired arthroscopically pretty easily, but if they do that, his season's going to be over, or at least a huge chunk of it. So it seems like he's going to try to play through it, which you could totally do, probably wear a shoulder brace, but I don't know what happens. He's been limited to start the week to this point. So for us, or for me, Ted can weigh in when I'm done here. For me, I would rather start Hunter than Brian Thomas Jr. this week. I think Hunter's going to have more of a role and outscore Brian Thomas Jr. this week. Rest of season, I think Brian Thomas Jr. gets his alpha roll back, gets his alpha usage back, and Travis Hunter. I would be shocked if while Brian Thomas Jr. is on the field, they just outright give the alpha usage to Travis Hunter. That would stun me. If it's just like 12 plus targets to Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas is getting 5 to 6 in niche situations. But I don't know. The other thing is we haven't had Brenton Strange in this offense, so maybe that changes things. For this week, though, like I'm starting Michael Pittman over Brian Thomas Jr., and I'm not really thinking too hard about it. I'm starting Tyrone Tracy Jr. Against San Francisco over Brian Thomas Jr. No stress about that. If Joe Flacco was going against Chicago, I probably would have started T. Higgins over Brian Thomas Jr. this week. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, you know, I've been a notorious Travis Hunter hater all season. Given the circumstances, right? Coming off the bye, with the Liam Cohen coach speak we've gotten about Travis Hunter and with BTJ being banged up, I'm willing to give it a shot this week. I mean, like most of the production, like you said, was when they were down like 28 points to the Rams in London. So, does it stick? I don't know. I know that it is in the best interest of the Jacksonville Jaguars franchise to get some sort of value out of Travis Hunter, though. This seems like a good spot in what should be, by all accounts, they should win this game. For the Raiders, I actually have a lot to say about this Raiders team. I think there's a chance they cover this number. Uh, I really do. So let's talk about Genty really quick. The strength of this Jacksonville team is in their turnovers that they create in their defensive line. Their defensive line's good. So this to me does not feel like a Genty spot. I think he's a really good player and he gets elite usage, but the Raiders line is so bad that he just runs into a brick wall repeatedly in these types of spots. I don't know. I'd still start him, but this would be you'd have to have drafted exceptionally. But he's like an RB2 for me this week. The big thing though is this Jacksonville Jaguars pass D, right? I think before the Rams game they were 27th in yards allowed in the air. If you can bet a Geno Smith anytime interception, I would do that right now on DraftKings or FanDuel or whatever your player props are. Go bet a Geno Smith anytime interception. That's going to happen against a team that kind of has lived off the turnovers, right? That being said, though, with Brock Bowers healthy, we've only seen one half of that all season. Brock Bowers went over 100 yards, and this Las Vegas Raiders team beat the Patriots, who, as it turns out, are a very good football team. That could have just been a fluke, but also, I think that having Brock Bowers back, like, significantly is going to help Geno be productive in some way, shape, or form. Maybe this is not the spot that we start him, but I'm optimistic slightly that the Raiders look better on offense here, especially with Geno in the air. I think there's a chance they cover this number. I don't know. Maybe that's crazy. I just have this weird Raiders radar that like it pops on me for me sometimes. I don't know. I know that everyone is going to come in heavy on this side, though. It feels like 3 points is too short. It is like a crazy discount, but could be a trap. I'm just saying. I think Gino, I would sit him, but if you're absolutely desperate, I don't hate it so much this week.
In
If you
case
just need someone.
in case you are wondering, DraftKings has the interception over under. He is favored by minus 145 for the over. The under is plus 114. So Vegas thinks he is much more likely, not much more, but 20% more
What is two
likely.
picks?
That is they are only offering an over under at point 0.5.
Oh, well, they knew.
Well, but dude, I'm sure. What if you wanted to bet two picks? You could go out the ass with that. What do you mean? Like two picks, you could find that. I bet you. I mean, if that's the one pick number, I bet you two picks would be like plus 285.
Dude, I feel
Like
like this is like, do you remember last year with Gino and Ryan Grubb, how he threw like 50, 60 times? I feel like that's what's happening in this game. Could be wrong, but it's just my gut feeling on it. Watch this be like 45-0 Jaguars, and you can come laugh at me next week. But I'm optimistic about my Raiders, okay? All right. Game of the week, I think. Is there any question? This is the game of the week, boys. We got the Kansas City Chiefs going into Buffalo to play Josh Allen and the Bills. The Bills have kind of been the Chiefs' regular season boogeyman. They've had the answers for this team over the past couple of years in the regular season. Then the Chiefs cuck them in the playoffs. We'll see if maybe something changes in this one. I feel like it has. The Chiefs have an implied team total of 27 points here, and the Bills have an implied team total of 25.5 points. So Vegas likes the Chiefs in this spot. Um, for the Chiefs, we're going to start Pat Mahomes. We're going to start Yanni's champion, Rashi Rice. We're going to start Travis Kelsey. Apparently, he just is not going anywhere, I guess. And then we're going to start my Fab Dump champion, Kareem Hunt. In a must-win game against Yanni, I Fab Dumped to get Kareem Hunt in the lineup. So
25%, 25% fab dump.
hey, I thought he was, dude. I thought with Pacheco out, people were going to be bidding. Apparently, I could have just done that for free. But let's, hey, well, we'll talk about it in a second here. But I think it's not a bad spot for him.
No, no.
We're going to sit the other wide receivers, and then Worthy's going to be our tricky decision. That hurts me. Is an aggressive Worthy drafter this offseason. I actually just traded, like I mentioned earlier, I did trade a share, so I'm slowly moving my way out of that business. But I think tricky decision is fine. For the Bills, I feel like this is pretty boilerplate for them. We're going to start Josh Allen, James Cook coming off the 200-yard week. What a savage. Dalton Kincaid, I know he had a bad week last week, but we're still starting him here. Khalil Shakir. Then we're sitting Keon Coleman, Yanni's least favorite player. So let's start with the Bills first. I feel like it's a little bit of an easier conversation, right? Josh Allen, so he came off the bye last week. He only threw the ball 18 times. I think he got 24 fantasy points for me. That's a weird league where it's 5 points per passing touchdown, so probably like 20-ish points. It's looked kind of weird for him. It feels to me like the receivers are having a hard time getting open, and he doesn't have anyone to throw to. I don't think Josh Allen is a worse player by any means, but I think that he's having a difficult time right now with his supporting cast other than James Cook. James Cook, there's nothing to really say here for me, right? I think that he's a no-brainer RB1, elite RB1. Like maybe I'm irrational on James Cook, but every time he touches the ball, it looks amazing to me. I know the Chiefs, like they're pretty good against the opposing running back, so like historically, like that could be conceived as like a tough matchup, but I don't care. James Cook for me is matchup proof. His per touch efficiency is elite. Elite. He has that breakaway speed. He had the 65 yarder against the Panthers last week. Like those are the Jonathan Taylor types of runs that we see, right? And he gets pretty good receiving work too. Like locked and loaded RB1. I don't care. Dalton Kincaid. He's like he doesn't get a ton of usage because he's like in this tight end rotation with Dawson Knox and I don't know the guy's first name, but Hawes, the blocking tight end, also gets in there. But Dalton Kincaid has been like a good red zone target on the Bills for a team that desperately needs it. I feel like this is going to be the prime timeiest prime time game. I feel like it's going to be a shootout. I feel like Josh Allen, like we saw week one when he put on his Superman cape. I think we get our best Josh Allen game of the year here. And as a result, Dalton Kincaid, I think Dalton Kincaid anytime touchdown is probably a good shout. I think he's totally tight end oneable this week. Don't be scared off from last week. Then Khalil Shakir, I feel like the chips have kind of fallen, at least unless there's a trade to Buffalo, which I feel like they're one of the more likely teams to trade for a player. But I think Shakir is the guy that you want in this passing attack. He had a slow start because of the high ankle, but we've kind of returned to neutral here. He is the guy who's making plays happen. It's not a tight end. He has really good yak. He shakes guys. He's explosive. He's a nice player. So we're gonna start him here. He's a very comfy flex for me. And then Keon Coleman, he's just having trouble separating. He hasn't been getting the ball. It's been weird. There's been points this year where he's been sat for quarters for behavior detrimental to the team, whatever that means. It just feels like he's a big personality who isn't playing like he was in college. It feels like the speed is too tough for him, and I don't know how that personality meshes with not being the guy. But yeah, I'm gonna sit him here for the Chiefs. Pat Mahomes, I believe he's the fantasy quarterback one this year. For those of you who were laughing at people who were taking Mahomes in round 5 or 6, they're drafting guys like Bo Nix in front of Pat Mahomes. I hope you feel stupid. This was one of my off-season takes. I was aggressively in on Pat Mahomes in the passing game. Maybe it was the wrong guy in the passing game, but I kind of saw this coming. Really, when you look at it, right? The Kansas City Chiefs the last 2 years have been playing with like one hand tied behind their back, and Mahomes has been dragging them to Super Bowls. And now all of a sudden, we're in a situation where I think that Pat Mahomes has an above average personnel grouping on offense. So I feel like this thing is going to continue to be like really, really crazy. I feel like Chiefs over 30 points is probably a lock here. Mahomes for me, I'd rather have him than Josh Allen rest of season. I'd rather have him than Lamar rest of season. He is legitimately my quarterback one because of how Mahomes centric everything Chiefs is, right? Rashee Rice, this is a no brainer. Since his return, he's leading the league in fantasy points per game. Obviously, Puka Nakua hasn't been playing those 2 weeks, so we'll see if he has anything to say about that. But the offense is elite. He's attached to the best quarterback in the game. The usage has been elite. The touchdown equity is elite. I don't know what else you want. If you drafted him in the 6th round or 5th round or wherever he was going, right, and you were patient and you stayed afloat during that period where he was gone, you're reaping the rewards now, boys. To me, where would you have him ranked rest of the season, Yanni? Because for me, it's like I prefer Puka, JSN, Jamar Chase. Then it gets close. Like that's where I'm at with him.
It's definitely those three. There was one more that I think you have to have above him. I'm trying to
Like
remember
maybe
who
Jefferson, but I think that's actually a conversation
no,
with the
no,
uncertainty.
no. I wouldn't have Lamb. I would take
Oh,
Lamb over it.
CD. That CD's pretty
Um,
close to me too. Like I feel
yeah,
like
but no.
he's nestled in Amon Ra. Like he's nestled in
Oh,
like
Amon
that
Ra.
Amon Ra
So
CD
Amon Ra.
range.
I would actually still take Amon Ra too. So it would be Amon Ra, CD, Puka, JSN, and Chase, and then
Oh,
he would be my wide receiver 6.
locked in, rock solid wide receiver one. Travis Kelsey. I think he had 100 yards last week. I think he set the Chiefs
Came just
record.
short. Came just
Oh,
short of it.
just short. Okay, but he was close to 100 yards. He got some touch. I don't know what number he hit, but he had a milestone touchdown last week. Apparently, what's happened here is Worthy being back and having all of the weapons that Kansas City has being back has not allowed defenses to really compress the middle of the field. And Kelsey's been getting like more of that vintage Travis Kelsey work. Like, I don't know, like he has awful hands. Like he had another drop last week that resulted in an interception for the Redskins. So I feel like he's still not the same player that he was, but his role in this offense, in his chemistry with Pat Mahomes, I think necessitates a tight end one. Like it just does. Like, you know, he's not like elite tight end one for me, but I think that he's going to be a fixture in your lineups rest of season. I think really we're just going to start seeing these really crazy aggressive Chiefs totals. I think from Vegas, and when you have those, you have to attack like pieces of this offense, right? And that's where Kareem Hunt comes in. The most disgusting running back in the NFL. Like, I don't know. Maybe Ramondre or Zach Charbonnet are competing with him for being like more disliked as a player. He came off the couch last year and was pretty good until he just like kind of it seemed like he got too slow for it. He's just old. Like Kareem Hunt, full disclosure, I drafted him his rookie season. It was one of my best teams I've ever had. I'm actually a Kareem Hunt guy. I've really enjoyed his NFL career, but it feels like what was happening this year was like at the cost of like Pacheco, who I thought was running better than him. But here's the thing. They like him at the goal line. Um, they like him at the goal line. He is just like their goal line back. So I feel like the Chiefs with this high point total, right? Pretty good chance he falls in the end zone. We don't have Pacheco. It sounds like Pacheco's not going to go this week. We haven't had anything official, but
No, he's
they
not.
said,
No,
well, he's
yeah.
not ruled out yet, right? But
He,
there's no shot he goes. It's pretty certain. He has an Pacheco has the MCL sprain, and he's week to week. But when they say week to week, that means we're probably looking post bye maybe. But unless you think Brashard Smith is gonna like have his usage significantly tick up, which that's possible, right? Like he got a lot of run against the Raiders in garbage time, but I feel like Kareem Hunt now is gonna be have a larger slice of the pie in terms of like the rushing work. And over the past 3 weeks, this is kind of interesting, right? The Chiefs have used the running back more than any other team in the NFL. It hasn't been fantasy relevant because it's split between three guys and it's been gross. Kareem Hunt's getting a bigger piece of the pie. He's getting goal line. He's getting like the fourth down and short work. If you need to, you can do it. I'm doing it this week. It felt disgusting. I spent too much fab on it, but I need to be on it. I'm doing it this week. God, please, Rashee Rice fall down on the one, please, like 2 or 3 more times and get Kareem Hunt in the end zone. I've been like just recoiling in disgust when that happens all year. But I feel like good chance it happens this week against a bad rush defense in Buffalo, maybe. The other wide receivers I just feel like are not relevant at this time, right? Like you could chase Juju Smith-Schuster points, you could chase Hollywood Brown points, but I feel like now we have this iteration, the final version of the Chiefs offense. Why not? Then for me, Worthy's a tricky decision because he is such an explosive player, right? He was third on the team in targets. He actually got some decent targets last week. The issue is just that it feels like when the Chiefs get like in that red area, like Worthy's a small bodied guy. That's not really like where they're going to be looking for him, right? So with X to me, it's more of like you're playing for the long touchdown, right? He is kind of that Jamison Williams archetype to me, except for Jamo's bigger body. I think he's more relevant in the red zone, right? I don't know. I really like the player. There's a lot high projected point total, so you could do it. But it just feels like he's the third option at best on the team. Hurts me to say because I was such an aggressive Worthy Bull in the offseason, but that's where I'm at with it. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all actually if Worthy does get a big touchdown in this week, just because of the point total and the way the passing is going to go down. Like I think Worthy's live here, but I don't know if I would be like shoehorning him into my lineups. And yeah, and I think Hunt's actually a great start this week. I really do. The Bills are a terrible like rush defense, and there's so many points. Yeah, I think that's a great streamer if you guys need it.
Did you know Patrick Mahomes was bottom 3 in efficiency on the deep ball last year? He's actually not good.
He's actually been bad on the deep ball this year. He's missed a lot of deep balls, dude. Like he's been. There is something weird about his deep ball. But that doesn't matter. That's not his bag. His bag is to ruthlessly, with computer-like precision, eviscerate your defense underneath. It's like it's like when you're watching a boxer, right? Floyd Mayweather did not throw haymakers. That was not what Floyd Mayweather did. What he was the most tactically sound fighter to ever do it. His jab is as good as it gets. His head movement is as good as it gets. His footwork is as good as it gets. And he sat there and picked apart the greatest fighters of his era, just piece by piece, by jab, by jab, by jab, by jab. So it's like that's what Mahomes' archetype is just different. I wouldn't claim that he's like this bomber that's dropping nukes left and right on the field. That's not what he does, but what he does is incredibly impressive. The mental acuity that he displays on a week to week basis, and now he has like his guy that does it to me, it's that mind meld with him and Rashee Rice is really unique in the way that they work the middle of the field and the soft parts of coverage and the way like Rashee works back to him or deeper. They had a couple third down conversions last week that were really impressive. And I also wonder, like, I don't know if this is true. I think there's this weird stat padding thing in close to the end zone where Mahomes wants those to be passing touchdowns. And I think that's why they have all that weird stuff designed, those weird forward pitches to Kelsey and all the Rice stuff, because it blows out Mahomes' touchdown numbers. I don't know that. It's the Dokes meme. I'll never be able to prove it. But I have a sneaking suspicion that they enjoy those short, basically pitches that should be handoffs being counted as Mahomes touchdowns. And that's part of what fuels Rice's usage, but who knows?
I think you guys can guess who we like in this game.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
could guess who
Yeah.
we'll put in the gambling show on that one.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Seahawks 25.25 implied team total. Going to the Skins 22.5 implied team total at home. Looks like Jaden's going to be good to go in this one. Looks like Terry is not. Terry announced a setback with his sports hernia injury. Typically, setbacks are worse than the initial injury. At this point, I am expecting him to be held out through their Week 12 bye, unfortunately, but it is what it is. For the Seahawks, JSN, your top 3 receiver, potentially top 1 receiver on the year, just an absolute fucking monster. You get him back, you get him in a great matchup. I expect 20 plus from him, even in half PPR. Dude should absolutely go wild. And because of that, I think Sam Darnold is a great streamer this week. Absolutely love Sam Darnold. Probably still prefer Trevor Lawrence, but it's close just because Trevor has such a lighter matchup. But like either way, man, if you can get, I actually did go on waivers for a Jalen Hurts. I have a bunch of Jalen Hurts rosters, which means I'm streaming this week left and right. I was able to get Stafford in a couple places, but where I was not, I was happily going to snatch up Darnold. Darnold will be starting for me this week. And then this one's sort of interesting, especially coming from me, right? I'm going to say you can start Charbonnet, but you're going to sort of tricky decision Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker is averaging almost 5 yards per carry. He's actually been one of the most efficient running backs on a per carry basis, but that doesn't really matter because he's not getting the red zone work. And we can quibble about that all we want. You can put up diatribes on Twitter about how outrageous it is that the Seahawks coaching staff does not understand the game of football to the extent that you, Twitter guy, does. I've done that before, by the way. I'm not judging. I've been there. But it doesn't really matter, right? The fact is that they have there's a very distinct division of labor that they envision for this running back unit. What they want is they want Kenneth Walker to eat yards in between the 20s. They're going to bring Charbon for his own drives too in between the 20s. It's not an exclusive thing. But when they get inside that 10-yard line, that is Charbonnet's work. They are going to, he's gotten a profuse amount of the carries inside the 10-yard line. Even on Kenneth Walker's birthday, they couldn't give poor Kenneth a carry at the 1. So to me, the way I view it, do I want to rely on touchdowns or predict when touchdowns are going to come? Not really. So they're both RB3s for me, but at least I know if Charbonnet hits, I only need one thing to go right. You just need him to get 1 to 3 yards and get in the end zone. So I prefer to start that. If for Walker to really hit with this type of division of labor they have going, you're talking about breaking like a 40-yard chunk play, which he's capable of doing, but typically you're going to need like 20 touches so you get your opportunities to do that. And he's actually gotten like 15 or 16 multiple games with Charbs. He's actually had a couple breakout games like with Charbonnet, but it's just not consistent. Like I don't have any conviction whatsoever about what these two guys are going to do on a week-to-week basis, except to say I'm positive if they get inside the 5, Charbonnet is going to get 2 or 3 shots at a touchdown. If they do it multiple times, Charbonnet is going to get 4 to 6 shots at a touchdown, and that's what I would prefer to bet on in fantasy. It's not great, though. It's just a gross split. If one or the other could get the fucking starting job, you would have a back-end RB1. That is how it's been for their whole career. If one of them has the clear lead job over the other, he's been a back-end RB1. It just they don't care about your fantasy teams, and they shouldn't care about your fantasy teams. They care about winning games. It looks to me like they care about getting to the playoffs with Kenneth Walker healthy, which he was not all summer. That, of course, the coaches are going to favor that. They don't give a shit about us. They shouldn't. For the Skins, Jaden, you are never sitting Jaden even when he's out there. I saw him traded in 2 or 3 leagues this week. Kind of interesting. I guess Jaden owners are tired of taking the beating. And I guess with Terry McLaurin out, that probably does hurt his ceiling. But you're starting him here, right? You're never going to sit him. It's actually a pretty tough match. I think the Seahawks are a sneaky good start for a DST this week. I saw them dropped in a lot of places too. I was able to load up my rosters with Seahawks DSTs, which to me is thrilling. Like they've been one of the highest performing units. I believe they are the number 1 scoring fantasy DST this year. So, I still would say roll him, but you're still going to roll Jaden. And then Debo and Ertz. Ertz, I think anytime Jaden's in, I'm starting Zach Ertz because like he's averaged, I think 11 or 12 per game in half PPR with Jaden Daniels, even including the 0 he got, just because he gets so much red zone work. That is his guy in the red zone, and they don't really have a short yardage back they've trusted. They're not really giving Bill that work up close. Christian Rodriguez, I know, has had a couple touchdowns from in close. But like it doesn't really seem like that's the case. It actually is very typically Zach Ertz getting targets. So like I love him as a back end tight end one with like 15 point and half point PPR and upside. That's real upside at tight end. Unfortunately, that just is what it is. So I like that. And then Debo. Debo has not been healthy the last couple of weeks, but I think without Terry, you sort of have to start him. Just because the volume's been really good. Unless he's really that unhealthy, I do think it's fair to point out that Debo the last few years has started out on fire and then sort of tapered off as injuries take their toll. Last year he got pneumonia, which is why I'm more inclined to write it off as a pneumonia thing than a physical thing. But his style of football is so physical. Like he's had problems since his Niners career. When he starts to pick up injuries, they kind of snowball sometimes. So I guess that's something we need to watch. Like to me, I will be willing to panic on it if he comes out flat this week. Traditionally, for the 49ers, he goes out there and lays the fucking hammer on the Seahawks. So like he hates the Seahawks. Me and old Theodore were in the corner of the end zone when Debo came out for like I don't even know what it was, like 140 yards, 2 touchdowns. He scored that long touchdown to put the Seahawks away in the divisional game. Was right at the corner we were in. That was so fun. We got to watch the angle of the 2 or 3 corners basically avoid him while he came down the sideline. So I think he's a start this week. But I'm giving you guys permission to panic if he comes out flat again with no Terry. That's when I would be a little worried. We told you guys to sell 2 or 3 weeks ago. You probably should have, but at this point you are going to write it out and you're going to start him in your flex.
Yeah, I agree with most of that stuff. You know, Kenneth Walker, he does average more yards per carry than Zach Charbonnet, but typically backup running backs do average a little bit more yards per carry than the starter. That is traditional. I'm just fucking with you, man. Yeah, I don't really have anything else on this game. Jaden, he is going to be banged up. Like he hasn't looked right to me this year with
No.
the knee injury he's been like dealing with. He missed last week with was it a knee or hamstring? I forgot, but
It was both. He's had a knee and a hamstring at points this year.
no, I would tempt like he's not an elite quarterback one to me this week, but he's still a quarterback one because of the rushing upside that he presents, right? And he really is like he's like the Drake May of the Redskins, where it's like that entire team is just it just revolves around Jaden Daniels being like great at football. So still a quarterback one, just not like the elite level.
Yep.
All right, Monday night. So we got every fantasy manager's favorite team, the Dallas Cowboys, are going to be hosting the Arizona Cardinals here. The Cardinals have an implied team total of 20.5, and the Cowboys have an implied team total of 23 points. Listen, any fantasy game the Cowboys are involved in, whether or not they get blown out or they blow someone else out or even it's a tie, there's going to be a lot of points that are scored. It feels like 43.5 is a pretty aggressively low total. So I'm sure our friend Yanni will be betting that over here. But yeah, that's where we're at. For the Cardinals, we're going to start Kyler Murray here. It looks like he should be back this week. We're going to start unquestioned RB1 for some reason. Bam Knight. So somehow Bam Knight has emerged from the battlefield. Is like the guy to own here. Okay, at least the Cardinals told us that, so we can like him in the spot. Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison Jr. Been a rough ride for you MHJ owners. Nothing makes you feel better though for a struggling wide receiver or any fantasy asset like playing the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh,
For the Cowboys, it's pretty much the boilerplate here, but we do have one adjustment. We're going to start Dak Prescott. We're going to start CeeDee Lamb. We're going to start George Pickens and Javonte Williams. Those are all, yeah, no does. The tricky decision here is Jake Ferguson, and we'll start with the Cowboys, and here's why. With CeeDee Lamb back on the field, Jake Ferguson's volume, like before he had like this crazy elite volume that he was getting on a team that like just was an elite offense and throwing a ton with Dak. But his target share has dropped with CD being back in the game. Like it's clear that if you're going to envision like the Cowboys passing game pie, right? CD Lamb and George Pickens are dominating that pie. And then like the third slice that is significantly smaller than the other two pieces is Jake Ferguson here. You're not sitting Jake Ferguson because tight end is so tough, right? And we're not like he's in my top 12 tight ends. So like he's not a tricky decision in terms of like a start or a sit for us, but we did want to put it on the board that I feel like he has become more of a touchdown dependent tight end one, like elite tight end one versus like because before he was like in that conversation with Tucker Kraft and Tyler Warren and all those guys, not the case anymore. We're gonna say it was a good run though for Ferguson. Still, if you drafted him in like the 10th round, you made a profit on that pick already. It was already a great pick, and he's still a member of this offense, which is good. For the other guys, Dak, CD, George Pickens, I don't think there's really much to say here, right? Like, if you're worried about George Pickens out targeting CD Lamb last week, don't. I think that it's just a 1A, 1B situation with Dak. When like this has been a talking point of the show, right? How the Dallas Cowboys are entirely a Dak and CD like connection, and that's like been their entire offense. What they did is they added George Pickens to that, and George Pickens is just as relevant as those two. And it really helps both of them out, I think, because like defenses can't key in on just CD, right? Or they can't key in on George Pickens because they're both too good. So the Cardinals have played pretty decent defense this year. They still don't really have a bunch of guys in the secondary. They're kind of like a Packers level secondary with like just a bunch of no name guys that are back there with maybe you could call it good scheme from Jonathan Gannon if you want to be generous, but no questions here. We're starting them. Javonte Williams, he's just a. It was a bad week last week against the Broncos, but he's like RB2 to borderline RB1 for me. The Cardinals rush defense has been okay, but this is the Dallas Cowboys, man. We're starting him with full confidence, I think. For the Cardinals, this is much more so that they are playing an outlier defense in the Dallas Cowboys, right? Kyler Murray. I see Kyler Murray on waivers in multiple leagues. I mean, I don't love the start, but if you need someone to fill in for bye, right? If you're a Jalen Hurts roster, if you're a Baker Mayfield roster, like I think Kyler's perfectly acceptable here. If we know anything about Dallas Cowboys games, they will score a lot of points and give up a lot of points. And Kyler with his legs, like presents at least a higher floor. I think it's fine here. Bam Knight, he is not good at football at all, but he's going to get the opportunity, and that's all we really need here against the Cowboys. Perfectly acceptable RB2. I actually missed him being available on waivers in one league. I'm starting Woody Marks instead. Absolutely would have gone with Bam instead if I had known he was there. Trey McBride, we don't have to talk about this. I don't think like. Well, actually, you know what? Here's something I think that's worth noting. Right, in the 2 weeks that Jacoby Brissett was quarterback, Trey McBride got 3 touchdowns. He has 3 touchdowns. Trey McBride does in his entire career with Kyler Murray. Is Kyler
Yep.
Murray like just a severely limiting force on Trey McBride, where we prefer him less when Kyler Murray is playing football? I don't. I'm not going to say that for sure, but I think it's on the board that Kyler is objectively a bad thing for Trey McBride. But it's the Cowboys. Elite tight end one this week for me. Then Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, he struggled like pretty much all year. Kyler has looked for him. He's made plays with Kyler Murray in there. Like not a lot of them, but he's made plays. But this is just picking on the Cowboys, man. I think he's a perfectly acceptable wide receiver too this week, right? I think you should try and pick your spots of Marvin Harrison Jr. This is about as good of a spot as you can pick, given what he's playing. What do you think, Yanni? Did I shit on the Cowboys enough?
Yeah, I mean, well, their defense certainly deserves it. I actually think their offense has played really good ball this year. Like, I think Dak's playing out of his mind. I think they got the Schottenheimer pick right, which is pretty crazy. Yeah, I would just say for Marvin Harrison Jr., this is probably going to be his best game of the year. Coming out of the bye, they had time to retool things. They had time to figure out what was working with getting him the ball, what wasn't. If you're not starting Marvin Harrison Jr. this week, you needed to have traded him during the bye week because, yeah, I think this will be his best week of the season. So no, that's it though. You got it.
Potential sell high for you Marvin Harrison Jr. owners that are still stuck with the bag. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yep.
going to do it for us. If you made it through the whole video, thank you. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell. It helps the channel out. Question of the day, we have to do this one because it is a free Tendies Fantasy head-to-head matchup. I'm going to flash up the matchup we have going on between me and Yanni this week. Both 4-4 teams. It looks like the way this league is shaken out, I don't think we're both getting in. So extremely important matchup. Let us know who you think wins. I actually, the last time we did this, I thought my team was going to beat Yanni's. This time, I don't think so. I have the big Q on bye with Chuba being disappointing and like the Pacheco pick and everything else. I feel like it's too much to overcome, but I think we got a puncher's chance, which is all you can ask for. And we'll catch you guys for the gambling episode on Friday.